Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. I can see the rewards. Chapter 41. Statement. A strange color flashed in Li Mubai's eyes. He put his hands behind his back and said calmly, I, the ninth peak master of the sword sect, am in the martial soul realm. Not to mention whether he can intercept a group of martial kings. Even if he can, he is still their waste. Martial spirit. Hearing this, everyone was startled. He is indeed a martial spirit. The Imperial Beast sect disciple named Jiang Yi said slowly, but beside him, there is a strong martial venerable. Martial venerable. Li Mubai's sharp gaze fell on her, and two sword beams shot out. How could martial venerable enter the Emperor's tomb? If martial venerable could enter, why would we wait here? The other four sect leaders also frowned. Jiang Yi, the master of Imperial Beast sect, pondered, martial venerable is indeed unable to enter the Imperial tomb. Are you sure you read that correctly? It can't be wrong. Jiang Yi said categorically. The strong martial venerable did not enter the Emperor's tomb from the outside world. It was a demon plant in the Emperor's tomb itself. However, I don't know why it helped Jiang Han. The demon plant in the Emperor's tomb. Li Mubai narrowed his eyes and revealed a smile. In the Emperor's tomb, everything depends on ability. He can make the demon plants in the venerable realm help him, that's also his ability. Strong words. A thunderous roar came from the chariot of the War Demon Palace. It is indeed his ability that he can get the help of demonic plants, but why should he let them give him half of the opportunities they got in the Emperor's tomb? Good. The master of the Imperial Beast sect said coldly. Disciples from all sects worked hard to get those opportunities, so what qualifications does he have to stand in front of the door and ask for them? Li Mubai, if he doesn't hand over those things today, don't blame me for waiting. Then give it a try. Li Mubai stood proudly with his hands behind his back, happy and unafraid. At this moment, the void rippled again, and a figure appeared, a monk. Abbot. As soon as the monk came out, he looked up at the figure sitting on the golden lotus in the air, his face full of anger. Sword sect. Amitabha. The old monk sitting on the golden lotus clasped his hands together and said calmly, hymning, you don't need to say it anymore, I already know it. The ninth peak master of the sword sect has snatched half of the opportunity from you, and there needs to be an explanation for this matter. No, Abbot. Hymning's face turned the color of pig liver. That Jiang Han took away all my gains in the Emperor's tomb. The words fell. The old monk's indifferent expression suddenly stiffened. It seems like I'm not too miserable. Not far away, Jiang Yi muttered in a low voice. Ripples rippled in the air, and immediately, disciples from various sects walked out one after another. They either had angry faces, calm eyes, or were dejected. This Jiang Han can really cause trouble for me. Li Mubai murmured. Although he said this, there was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and he was obviously in a good mood. How did junior brother Jiang do it? Next to him, the second peak leader Yuan Tian stroked his long beard and said with a strange expression, being able to get a strong martial venerable to help him, can't be done by deception. He never imagined that he could do this only by relying on the broken great principle sword he gave Jiang Han. If I knew the truth, I would probably beat my chest and regret deeply. Linger, your things were also robbed. On the chariot, the deep voice of the master of the War Demon Palace came out. No, Shi Ling blinked. Jiang Han and I. Well, we can barely be considered friends. Friend. The lord of the War Demon Palace frowned slightly. Next to him, Shihu gave a wry smile and recounted the whole story. Hearing this, the face of the master of the War Demon Palace changed, and the look he looked at Shi Ling became a little weird. Dad, why do you look at me like this? Shi Ling's cheeks were slightly red, and he felt uncomfortable for a while. It's a bit difficult to handle. The master of the War Demon Palace smacked his lips. The War Demon Palace has always been famous for its cruel training, so the master of the War Demon Palace would let his son and daughter enter the Emperor's tomb, but this does not mean that he does not love them. If all his disciples were robbed, he could still find trouble with the sword sect and ask for justice, but his daughter was actually saved by the other party. This was a real life-saving grace. Correct. Shihu suddenly lowered his voice. Dad, there is one more thing. The people who joined forces to attack my sister at that time were those from the small sect. Hear the words. The master of the War Demon Palace's eyes suddenly turned cold. What a coward. Do you know which sects they are? Have no idea. Ling shook his head gently. Xiaolu took me to escape at that time, but Jiang Han stayed to intercept them. I don't know what happened next. However, none of those who attacked us survived. The master of the War Demon Palace pondered for a moment, then suddenly said, "Did you cast the Demon Summoning Sutra?" Kindness. Ling nodded. That's easy to say. The master of the War Demon Palace pointed at the center of her eyebrows, and wisps of deep black energy filled the pupils. Boom. A scene emerged in his mind, when Ling was attacked in the Emperor's tomb, but his perspective was that of the majestic demonic shadow behind Ling. The picture freezes. The Lord of the War Demon Palace merged into the eyes of the demon shadow, and then entered the consciousness of everyone present, directly, seeing everyone's true face. Subsequently, his eyes slowly appeared in Jiang Han's consciousness. Is this person Jiang Han? Apart from his good-looking appearance, there is nothing special about him. The master of the War Demon Palace secretly thought. Suddenly, an extremely bright sword light seemed to strike from the endless chaos, with a terrifying aura that destroyed everything, and cut his sight into pieces in an instant. Boom! The Lord of the War Demon Palace suddenly stood up, his back soaked with cold sweat. Dad, what's wrong with you? Shihu on the side quickly stretched out his hand to support him. No, it's okay. The master of the War Demon Palace took a deep breath and sat down slowly. His eyes were dim and uncertain, and there was still a trace of panic on his face. He murmured in his heart, what is the origin of that sword light in Jiang Han's mind? It even happened in succession. Even the projection of the Demon Lord cannot compete with it. At this moment, the disciples of Jian Zong have all come out. Li Mubai's gray eyebrows wrinkled and asked a disciple, where is Jiang Han? Uncle Jiang, he should be out soon. The disciple said respectfully. Have you found it? Yuan Tian called his 3 disciples and asked in a low voice. The main reason why he was willing to trade the great principal broken sword with Jiang Han for that spot was that he had a 3-talent sword formation that required 3 disciples to use it, giving him martial sovereign combat power in a short period of time. Master, I found it. One of the disciples said softly, however, only 3 of them are useful to you. It is estimated that they can only extend your life by less than 100 years. Enough. There was a hint of joy in Yuan Tian's eyes. When he was traveling in the early years, his lifespan was greatly reduced due to some things. He tried all kinds of life-extending spirit medicines, but most of the spirit medicines that can extend lifespan are only effective the first time. As of now, his lifespan is less than 5 years. That's why he decided to exchange his broken sword with Jiang Han for this spot. Buzz. The void suddenly rippled. Jiang Han's figure emerged, and vaguely, it seemed that a small world behind him could be seen collapsing and destroying. Brush. All eyes were on him. Jiang Han paused slightly, raised his head, and smiled. Why are everyone looking at me like this? Let's go back to our homes and find our mothers. Are you the master of the 9th peak of Sword Sect? The master of the Imperial Beast Sect stared at him indifferently and said, since you have obtained the inheritance of Martial Emperor, why do you still want to snatch the opportunities from the disciples of various sects? Could it be that the inheritance of Martial Emperor still can't satisfy your appetite? That's wrong. Jiang Han looked at the figure on the giant bird and said without changing his expression, Senior, you might as well ask, without me, which one of them would have come out of the Emperor's tomb alive? What's the meaning? The master of Imperial Beast Sect narrowed his eyes slightly. He's right. On the chariot of the War Demon Palace, Ling said loudly, actually, as long as Jiang Han is willing, all of us will die in the Emperor's tomb. Does he dare? A disciple of the Imperial Beast Sect looked livid and said coldly, even if I gave him 10,000 courages, he would not dare to take the huge risk of offending the major sects and kill us in the Imperial tomb. Why doesn't he dare? In the direction of the Iron Sword Gate, Xiaolu, who was carrying a huge iron sword, said calmly, if he really killed everyone, who can be sure that it was him? The Emperor's tomb is full of dangers, and it is not impossible for everyone to die in it. Hee. At the Vajra Gate, Himing sneered again and again, 2 female benefactors, then Jiang Han wants to take half of the chance from even the disciples of the Sword Sect, but you 2 don't take any of it. I'm afraid there is something dirty with him, right? Presumptuous. The cold voice of the master of the War Demon Palace exploded like thunder, causing Himing's energy and blood to surge. Old bald donkey, take care of your disciples. If I hear that kid slandering my daughter again, I will kill him without mercy. Amitabha, the old monk of the Vajra Gate, clasped his hands together and solemnly said, "Himing, please don't lie." However, why did the donor Jiang Han take away half of the opportunities from others, but took away all of Himing's opportunities? Can you give me an explanation? Jiang Han turned to look at the old monk and chuckled, "I want him all the opportunities for his own good." How you said that? The old monk looked calm, neither happy nor sad. As the saying goes, monks don't lie. Jiang Han said calmly, and that Himing clearly got hundreds of spirit medicine plants in the emperor's tomb, but he only took out a dozen to perfunctory me, saying that was half of his harvest. Doesn't this violate the Buddhist gate commandments? Quote, I asked him to hand it over all so that his Buddha's heart would not be stained and he would miss the great Tao. Great monk, you should thank me. Hear the words. Everyone's expressions suddenly became strange. Jiang Han's words are undoubtedly strong words, but he still has no way to refute them. Amitabha, the old monk said the Buddha's name. Donator Jiang has a sharp tongue, which I admire. However, donor Jiang has a close affinity with Buddhism. If you want to convert to Buddhist gate in the future, Vajra Gate will welcome you at any time. Say it. He said goodbye to the sect leaders of the 4 major sects, took his disciples and turned into Buddha's light and left. Suddenly, the atmosphere around him became weird. The situation at this time is very special. In the verbal exchange just now, there were people from Iron Sword Gate and War Demon Palace speaking for Jiang Han, and the sword sect would undoubtedly turn to Jiang Han. There was also a person beside Jiang Han himself. Demon Plant Marshal Venerable. Farewell. The Imperial Beast Sect Master's eyes were gloomy and he stared at Jiang Han coldly. Phew. The next moment, the giant bird roared, its wings suddenly spread out, and in an instant it turned into an afterimage and disappeared into the sky. Sword Sect, you really have gained a good disciple. The master of Iron Sword Gate sighed. Iron Sword Gate and the Sword Sect have been fighting openly and secretly for many years, and both parties have been very careful to find out the information. So, the master of Iron Sword Gate is relatively familiar with Jiang Han's situation. He knows that he is a new disciple who has just started, but for some reason, he was appointed as the master of the 9th peak by that old fox Li Mubai. He touched the head of Xiaolu beside him, and the huge iron sword under his feet turned into a sword light and disappeared in an instant. Boy, the thunderous voice of the master of the War Demon Palace came from the ancient chariot, you are very good, much better than that old guy Li Mubai. Jiang Han, come and visit me when you have time. Shi Ling stood on the chariot and waved to Jiang Han. Roar, the 6-headed, double-winged white tiger looked up to the sky and roared, pulling the ancient chariot into the void. Sect Master, this disciple has something to report. Only the members of the sword sect were left on the spot. A female disciple looked at Jiang Han with a hateful look and said in a sad voice, just now in the Emperor's tomb, Master Jiang killed senior brother Mu Feng and Wu Li from the 7th peak. Junior brother. Jiang Han raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the female disciple. The resentment in her eyes was extremely strong, as if her lover had been killed. Well, maybe one of them was her lover, but she didn't dare to show up in the Emperor's tomb. Now that she saw Li Mubai, she dared to say exit. Oh, Li Mubai pondered for a moment and looked at Jiang Han, as what she said true or false? Real. Jiang Han nodded calmly. This matter couldn't be hidden. After all, not only the female disciple was present at the time, but also other sword sect disciples and people from various major sects. A little research will tell you. Why? Li Mubai frowned slightly. They attacked me first. Jiang Han said calmly, since they want me to die, I naturally have no choice but to send them to death. Nonsense. The female disciple glared at Jiang Han, everyone can see it. It was clearly you who killed brother Wu Li, and you personally admitted that you killed brother Mu Feng. Do you still want to deny it? Did you see them when they attacked me? Jiang Han glanced at her coldly. The female disciple was immediately speechless. But soon, she spoke again. You said they wanted to kill you, but it was just empty talk. What evidence is there? When Mu Feng attacked me, there were only people from the small sect nearby, and they were all dead. Naturally, no one could testify for me. However, when Wu Li attacked and killed me outside the ancient bronze palace, 2 people witnessed it. Jiang Han said lightly. Who? Li Mubai asked. The Path of Iron Sword Gate and the Stone Spirit of War Demon Palace. Jiang Han said. Those two people obviously have friendship with you, so they will naturally stand on your side. Who knows whether what they say is true or false? The female disciple coldly snorted. Boom. The aura on Jiang Han's body suddenly erupted, and he stared at her with cold eyes, spreading trouble and making trouble. Do you think that I can't kill you as long as the sect leader is present? You are still so arrogant even though the sect master is here, it shows that I did not blame you wrongly. The female disciple said bitterly. Jiang Han took a deep breath. He stretched out his left hand, and in his palm, a small sapling slowly emerged. In an instant, a breath of terror swept out. Li Mubai's eyes were focused, staring at the sapling in Jiang Han's palm, with a solemn look flashing in his eyes. Li Mubai, the master of the sword sect, has met fellow Taoist. Anonymous, met Li fellow Taoist. The 10,000-year-old tree demon's faint mental fluctuations came out. It's really martial venerable. Next to him, the second peak leader Yuan Tian's pupils shrank slightly. He is a martial sovereign, and he can clearly feel the terrifying oppressive force conveyed by this sapling. He is even a bit stronger than the sect leader Li Mubai. What do fellow Taoists think? After a long silence, Li Mubai said slowly. There is no need for Jiang Han to lie about this matter. The 10,000 years dryad said calmly, if he was really guilty, why would he stay here and wait to die? You should understand that with me here, it is not difficult for him to escape safely. Furious, the female disciple said sternly, the sect master is here, you. Boom, a terrifying thought enveloped her, and the 1,000-year-old tree demon's indifferent mental fluctuations came out, with him here, I can still kill you. How dare you, an ignorant junior, yell at me? The female disciple's face suddenly turned pale, her lips were trembling, and her whole body was trembling. Fellow Taoist, do not be angry. A flash of sword light suddenly appeared in Li Mubai's eyes, cutting away the thoughts that enveloped the female disciple, and then he smiled and said, I also believe in Jiang Han's character and will not kill fellow disciples for no reason, otherwise how could he be allowed to be the 9th peak? Host. Let's do this. I will slowly investigate this matter and wait until I return to the sect to discuss everything. The 1,000-year tree demon made no sound and disappeared into Jiang Han's palm. Li Mubai said with a faint smile, Jiang Han, you really don't give me any face, and you know how to use the situation to suppress me. Sect master, you have to understand me. Jiang Han shrugged, I can't stand others being wrong. By the way, Wu Li and Mu Feng should both be members of the 7th peak master, right? And Han Lingyu from before seems to want to kill me and then hurry up. Sect master, have I offended the 7th peak master in some way? Quote. Hear the words. Li Mubai frowned slightly. He was silent for a moment, shook his head and said, don't mention this matter again. Let's go back to the clan. After that, he drove the ancient sword and turned into swordlight and flew towards the direction of Jianzong. Interesting. A strange color flashed in Jiang Han's eyes. It can be seen that Li Mubai seems to be afraid of Ji Yulinyan, the leader of the 7th peak, but it is definitely not her whom he is afraid of. Their cultivation levels are not on the same level. So, behind Ji Yulinyan, there must be someone who is not weaker than Li Mubai, or even stronger than him. Up the flying sword, Yuan Tian stood with Jiang Han and coughed lightly. Brother, I heard that you collected a lot of spirit medicine this time, right? Good. Jiang Han glanced at him and said, what, senior brother Yuan lacks spirit medicine? It's true. Yuan Tian showed a hint of embarrassment and whispered. Senior brother, I was traveling and was tricked by a traitor. I had to use secret techniques, which resulted in a short lifespan. Do you have any spirit medicine that can extend your life? I can sell you 1 or 2 of them to my senior brother. Hear the words. Jiang Han looked astonished. No wonder he was willing to exchange the broken sword of the great principal for a new spot. It turned out that he wouldn't live long. I actually have a few of the spirit medicine that prolongs life. Jiang Han rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, if senior brother can answer a question for me, then there is no harm in giving some to senior brother. Brother, please tell me. Yuan Tian's eyes brightened. I want to know about the 7th peak leader Ji Yulinyan. Jiang Han said slowly. Yuan Tian's expression changed slightly. He hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice and said, I can't say more about her. I can only warn my brother that even if we don't make friends, it's best not to provoke her again. This person. He didn't continue, he just stretched out his hand and pointed at it. You can't afford to offend me. Is there anyone up there? Jiang Han nodded thoughtfully. Logically speaking, the leader of the sword sect, Li Mubai, is naturally the biggest, but what Yuan Tian means is that Ji Yulinyan has another backer, and that backer must be very powerful. I see. After pondering for a while, Jiang Han nodded slightly. Senior brother Yuan, when you return to sword sect, send a disciple to the 9th peak to get spirit medicine. Thank you bro. Yuan Tian suddenly showed joy. He is really short of lifespan. As long as he lives a few more days, he can hope to break through to Martial Venerable. In this way, his lifespan can be increased by hundreds of years. The entire journey was silent. Not long after, everyone returned to Jianzhong. This mountain is so full of evil spirits. As soon as we landed on the 9th peak, the cold voice of the 10,000-year-old tree demon rang in my mind. It's strange, it seems to be a blessed mountain, why is there such a strong evil spirit? Evil spirit? Jiang Han raised his eyebrows. Good. The 1,000-year-old tree demon slowly emerged, and its tone was slightly solemn. This mountain has the strongest evil spirit among the 10 nearby mountains. Even the main peak cannot compare with it. Jiang Han's eyes narrowed, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. According to legend, there was a mysterious and powerful battle here. The outcome was unknown, but a broken sword fell from the sky and turned into a mountain, which is today's Heavenly Sword Mountain. But there is another legend that the 9th peak is also part of the broken sword. The tip of the sword. Because he has been stained with the blood of countless creatures, he possesses extremely terrifying swordsmanship. Therefore, the 9th peak in the past generations only had the peak master and no disciples. The authenticity of the legend cannot be determined, but there must be something wrong with the 9th peak. After thinking for a moment, he asked, Senior, do you mean that the spirit medicine brought out from the Emperor's tomb cannot survive here? Can. The 10,000-year tree demon said, although the evil spirit of this mountain is strong, it does not seem to affect the creatures on the mountain. Otherwise, how could there be flowers, plants and trees growing here? There should be no grass growing. That's good. Jiang Han nodded, looked at the ring on his finger, and flicked it. Call out. A stream of light flew out and landed on the ground, transforming into an old man. It was the purple-blooded ginseng. He carefully looked around and breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the 10,000-year-old tree demon. Master Martial Venerable. He walked up to Jiang Han and saluted the 10,000-year tree demon. Do you want to take root here too? Kindness. The 10,000-year tree demon sent out dull mental fluctuations. Very good. The old man looked happy. He looked up at Jiang Han and said, Thank you fellow Taoist for providing a place to stay. If there is any mission in the future, we will do our best. It really does. Jiang Han chuckled. Besides you, is there any other spirit medicine that can increase longevity? Take a small amount. Have. The old man nodded quickly. With that said, he asked all the spirit medicines in the ring to come out, and quickly took out several pieces of different types of spirit medicine. Jiang Han glanced at them casually, and after confirming, he put them away. Okay, you can move around freely. Jiang Han waved his hand, but please pay attention to 2 points. First, you must not leave the 9th peak, otherwise you will be targeted by other elders. Second, do not get close to the pool next to the cliff on the top of the mountain, otherwise your life may be in danger. Yes, all spirit medicines have agreed. They scattered in all directions and wandered around the 9th peak curiously. Jiang Han didn't bother to take care of them. As long as they stayed on the 9th peak, it didn't matter. Senior, what about you? I'll put my roots down there. The tree sapling transformed from the 10,000-year-old tree demon floated to the position of the pool, took root on the ground, and grew rapidly. Although it was not comparable to the size when it was in the Emperor's tomb, it could still be considered to have lush branches and leaves. Brush. A pair of indifferent eyes appeared on the tree trunk. It stared at the lazy little red fish in the pool, with a faint flash of strange color in its eyes. This little fish seems to have the blood of Kun, and the blood is not low. Could it be that Jiang Han's Kunpeng martial spirit comes from it? It looked at the little red fish deeply for a few times, and then its eyes disappeared. On the trunk. This tree demon is really not simple. Not far away. Jiang Han looked at the 1,000-year-old tree demon rooted next to the pool, and the corners of his mouth curled up. It must have sensed the specialness of young Kun, so it took root there. This might be good, as it might make young Kun grow up faster. World Tree. When Xiaoyao Martial Emperor obtained its seeds, grew up in the small world, and turned into a tree demon. Now it is freed from the shackles of the small world and transformed into a real world tree. After watching, you can get the martial soul, world tree. Closing square bracket. Watch and learn. Jiang Han did not hesitate. When I looked at its information before, its name was 10,000 Years Tree Demon, but now it has become World Tree. Just hearing the name alone makes it look very pretty. Boom. 3 huge martial arts spirits appeared behind him. The bronze temple is in the center, with Kunpeng and Heavenly Sword Mountain on both sides, and the shadow of the World Tree slowly emerges next to Kunpeng's martial spirit. Jiang Han suddenly had the idea. The World Tree is not as good as the Bronze Temple, but it should be on the same level as Kunpeng and Heavenly Sword Mountain. What is the origin of the Bronze Temple? Jiang Han was secretly shocked. It powerfully occupies the central position, squeezing other martial spirits aside. Even Kunpeng, who was invincible in the ancient years, was firmly suppressed. How powerful would the person who created it be? Take a deep breath. Jiang Han gathered his thoughts and observed the World Tree carefully. Kindness. Not far away, the World Tree sensed something, and 2 eyes appeared on the trunk, looking at Jiang Han in shock. Why does he want to observe me? The Heavenly Sword Mountain, Kunpeng and the Ancient Bronze Palace are all extraordinary and have mysterious origins, but I am just a 10,000-year-old tree demon growing in the Emperor's tomb. Its eyes were full of confusion. In fact, it does not know its identity, but it knows that it is connected to the small world where the Emperor's tomb is located. Once it leaves the Emperor's tomb, it will cause the small world to collapse and be annihilated. Jiang Han, what are you watching me do? Its voice sounded in Jiang Han's mind. Can't you? Jiang Han raised his eyebrows slightly and looked into the eyes on the tree trunk. Not me. The 10,000 years dryad was a bit embarrassed to say it, and hesitantly said, my 3 martial spirits and yours are far different. If you observe me, wouldn't the martial souls I born have lowered their quality? Jiang Han was stunned. Is this low self-esteem? After a brief daze, Jiang Han understood. This 10,000-year-old tree demon probably doesn't know its own special characteristics at all. It just thinks that it is just an ordinary tree demon. Because it grew early in the Emperor's tomb, it is connected to the small world where the Emperor's tomb is located. As everyone knows, the fundamental reason why the Emperor's tomb will collapse after it leaves the Emperor's tomb is because it is the World Tree. Think for a moment. Jiang Han stared at it and said slowly, except that the Bronze Temple is more special. In fact, there is no difference between you and my Kunpeng martial spirit and Heavenly Sword Mountain martial spirit. You are not inferior to them at all. How you said that? There was deep confusion in the eyes of the 1,000-year tree demon. It's true. The shadow of the World Tree behind Jiang Han gradually became clear, and he said, I was born with a pair of wise eyes that can see through the essence of all things. Senior, do you know your origin? My origin. I was just lucky. I was brought to the Emperor's tomb by Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. Because I was nourished by the aura of the small world and listened to the sermons of Martial Emperor in my early years, I was able to achieve such an achievement. The 10,000-year tree demon said this. No. Jiang Han's eyes flashed. I'm afraid you weren't the only one who was brought to the Emperor's tomb, right? Indeed. The cold voice of the 1,000-year-old tree demon echoed in his mind. In the past, the Martial Emperor opened up the small world and planted many seeds in it, but some took root and sprouted later. I should be the first. Isn't that right? A smile appeared at the corner of Jiang Han's mouth. Xiaoyao Martial Emperor brought so many seeds in, why are you the most powerful? I won't be too pretentious. To tell you the truth, you are actually a different species, called the World Tree. World Tree. The 1,000-year-old tree demon's eyes were dull. Its mind was in chaos. It had been conscious for thousands of years since its birth, but it had never thought that it would be a world tree. Seeing this, Jiang Han stopped talking and let him digest the news quietly. After all, after living for so long, I suddenly realized that I was not an ordinary tree, but one of the most special beings among the alien species in the world. If it were any living being, I am afraid that I would not be able to calm down immediately. Brother, are you back? Suddenly there was a joyful call from behind. Jiang Han had finished observing at this time. He looked back and saw Jiang Yi's little face full of excitement, running towards him. Brush. In just a blink of an eye, Jiang Yi appeared in front of him. What a speed! Jiang Han was secretly startled, looked at her carefully, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Yi, have you broken through to the realm of martial arts? Yes. Jiang Yi threw herself into his arms with a smile. I broke through before I knew it. Jiang Han, heartbroken. This girl's talent is too terrifying. When he was the martial master, Jiang Yi was an ordinary person. Now that he has become a 4-star martial spirit, Jiang Yi has also become a martial spirit. The Wugo sword body is really unreasonable. Correct. Jiang Han suddenly asked, Yi, what level of martial spirit are you now? 1 star. Jiang Yi blinked his big bright eyes. I only observed 1 martial spirit, look. Said. A shadow suddenly appeared behind her. Jiang Han stared at it, his brows suddenly furrowed. Jiang Yi's martial spirit is a sword, and this sword is very weird because it is not complete. No, it should be said that it is a complete sword, but it is broken. It was as if someone had broken it into pieces and then forcibly put it back together with glue. But, vaguely, Jiang Han felt that this martial spirit was extremely extraordinary. The moment it appeared, the remaining great principal sword placed in the storage ring trembled slightly, and the blood rust on it gave off a red light. What kind of sword is this? Jiang Han's expression became solemn. Yi, where did you observe such a sword? It's the sword sect. Jiang Yi revealed a sly look and said, brother, come with me. Said. She grabbed Jiang Han's hand, cast the floating sword shadow, and flew away in one direction. After a while, she came to the outside of Zhanzong, and stopped about 10 miles away. What did you bring me here for? Jiang Han was confused. This is a deserted wilderness, inaccessible, and the roar of monster can be vaguely heard in the distant forest. Look, Jiang Yi stretched out her hand and pointed in the direction of Jianzong. Jiang Han turned his head and looked, puzzled at first. After a while, his pupils suddenly shrank, and a look of shock appeared in his eyes. From this position and angle, looking at the 10 peaks of the sword sect, one can suddenly see that they are scattered and connected to form a complete sword. Heavenly Sword Mountain is the hilt of the sword, and the 9th peak is the tip of the sword. The other peaks form the sword body. And Jiang Yi's martial spirit is this unique sword. No wonder even the broken sword of the great principal reacted. After all, the Heavenly Sword Mountain martial spirit transformed into the hilt alone can be compared with the Kunpeng martial spirit. And this is a flawless sword, so you can see how terrifying it is. Have you told anyone else? Jiang Han said solemnly. No. The corners of Jiang Yi's lips curled up. Even Sister Nangong doesn't know about it. I only told my brother. Jiang Han smiled and touched her head, and said seriously. That's right. Remember, never tell anyone else. If someone asks you about the origin of your martial arts spirit in the future, just say that it was your understanding from observing 10,000 swords in the sword tomb. Do you understand? No. Jiang Yi nodded vigorously. Good. Jiang Han smiled, staring at the sword, composed of the peaks of the sword sect, and text messages appeared in his mind. A mortal executing sword is damaged and its origin is unknown. It is suspected to be a legacy of great power from ancient times. After breaking, it turned into a mountain. After watching, you can get rewards. Martial Spirit, Heavenly Sword Mountain is upgraded to Martial Spirit, a mortal executing sword damaged. Closing square bracket. Zhu Xian. Jiang Han's heart was in turmoil, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. As a transmigrator, I am naturally familiar with this sword. It is the law treasure held by the spirit treasure Heavenly Venerable, one of the 3 pure ones in mythical legend. It is supposed to have the 4 swords of killing immortals. I don't know if it's just the same name, or... Jiang Han took a deep breath. He calmed down his thoughts and observed the damaged immortal executing sword. The phantom of Heavenly Sword Mountain slowly emerged behind him. The next moment, it suddenly shrank and turned into a long sword full of cracks, floating behind him. It suddenly squeezed the Kunpeng Phantom and the World Tree Phantom aside, trying to compete with the Bronze Temple. Boom! The Bronze Temple exploded with divine power and still suppressed it steadily. The damaged immortal executing sword phantom shook a few times unwillingly, and finally fell one position behind the bronze temple. It failed to seize the central position, but it moved closer to the center. Jiang Han stood silently for a long time. Suddenly, the damaged immortal executing sword disappeared and transformed into the heavenly sword mountain again. Can't be ostentatious, he thought to himself. The heavenly sword mountain martial spirit turned into a sword inexplicably. Anyone would be suspicious. Fortunately, they are one. I have obtained the immortal executing sword martial spirit and can transform the two at any time. Let's go. Jiang Han took Jiang Yi's little hand, turned it into swordlight, and swept towards the 9th peak. Time passes unconsciously. Jiang Han sat under the world tree on the 9th peak, with a pill furnace in front of him. There was only one thing bothering him now. What else can you observe? Jiang Han dragged his cheeks and his eyes were blurred. He has been thinking about this issue for a whole month. His cultivation has stopped at the 4-star martial soul. He cannot just observe and imitate something to improve his cultivation. No doubt, the martial soul realm is extremely critical. To describe it in terms of building a house, the previous 3 levels of martial artist, martial master, and martial grandmaster are just finding a place to build a house. The martial soul realm is the beginning of the official foundation laying. In the past month, Jiang Han has been so bored that he has been studying alchemy and artifact refining. In fact, the great principle broken sword is a good reference, but with the immortal executing sword in front of it, it looks a bit shabby. It would be fine if it was intact, but the key is that it is a broken sword. Hey, I'm upset. Jiang Han sighed and flicked his fingers. Call out. A burst of sword energy opened the lid of the alchemy furnace, and the rich fragrance of alchemy came out. Jiang Han reached out and took out a round pill in his hand, looked at it casually for a few times, and then threw it into his mouth, like chewing jelly beans. Bah! Suddenly, a high-pitched cry resounded in the sky. Jiang Han looked intently and saw a strange bird surrounded by colorful lights coming from the sky towards Jianzong. It was vaguely visible, and there were several figures standing on its back, shrouded in hazy mist. Kai! A sword light rose on Heavenly Sword Mountain. After a while, both the sword light and the exotic bird slowly landed on Heavenly Sword Mountain. Imperial Beast Sect. Jiang Han narrowed his eyes slightly. No. Although the exotic bird in the Imperial Beast Sect is also surrounded by colorful lights, it is far different from this one, just like, one is a peacock and the other is a pheasant. Of course, this is just a description. To put it another way, the strange bird in front of you is the real one, and the other one is a fake. I wonder which big force it is. Jiang Han murmured in his heart. Soon, he put this question behind him and didn't think much about it. It has nothing to do with him anyway. Heavenly Sword Mountain. Li Mubai was sitting on the main seat, with a smile on his face. He said to a girl wearing a light blue dress sitting below, Miss Yi and the others are here to visit our sect. It is really a brilliance for me. What an honor. Sect Master Li is too polite. The girl had a delicate face and bright eyes like water. She spoke softly, her temperament was like an orchid in an empty valley, and her voice was like the tinkling of a clear spring, especially pleasant to the ear. I came to your sect today to ask for something. Miss Yi is serious. Li Mubai looked a little serious and said in a deep voice, but it doesn't matter, I will do my best. For Sect Master Li, it's just a matter of words. The girl said. Oh, Li Mubai looked surprised. The identity of the girl in front of her is extraordinary. She is from Zhongzhou, and the family behind her is extremely powerful. The powerful martial god has been born in the past. Although the sword sect is strong, it only dominates the eastern wilderness. To this girl, it is nothing. I want to join the noble sect. The girl's bright eyes moved and she spoke calmly. What? Li Mubai stood up suddenly, with a look of astonishment on his face, and waved his hands repeatedly. Yi, Miss Yi, don't joke with me. How can I, the sword sect, be able to catch Miss Yi's discerning eye? I wasn't joking. The girl's tone was still calm, but now there was a hint of undoubted toughness. Isn't it possible that Sect Master Li is unwilling? Li Mubai's expression froze. At this time, an old man standing behind the girl sneered and said, Why, is it possible that Sect Master Li doesn't like my young lady's qualifications? Or is he worried that my young lady has some plans for your sword sect? Don't dare. Li Mubai smiled bitterly. It is a blessing for the sword sect that Miss Yi is willing to practice in our sword sect. However, our sword sect's temple is small, so I'm afraid no one is qualified to teach Miss Yi. This is not a worry for Sect Master Li. My young lady will practice under whose sect she is willing to practice, the old man said. Uncle Jiang. The girl spoke softly, don't be rude. Yes. The old man chuckled and said nothing. Metropolitan. The girl's face remained calm. She looked at Li Mubai and said calmly, how about inviting all the elders here, and I will choose one myself and join his sect to practice. Not long after, in the main hall of Heavenly Sword Mountain, all the elders gathered. They had received the news and knew that this woman was from Zhongzhou. Miss Yi. Li Mubai smiled and said, they are the elders of my sword sect, you can choose them as you like. Each elder held his head high and held his chest high, with a hint of fiery color in his eyes. If they could become this girl's master, even just in name, it would be an opportunity for them. The girl's eyes swept across their bodies, then she frowned slightly, looked at Li Mubai, and asked doubtfully, are all the elders here? Forehead. Li Mubai was stunned, and he hesitated a little, there is one more, but. But what? Ms. Yi doesn't know something. A strange color flashed in Ji Yulingyan's eyes, and she said first, the one who didn't come as the 9th peak master. He is just a martial soul practitioner. He became an elder because of his luck. He is definitely not qualified to be Miss Yi's master. Ask him to come over. The girl interrupted her words calmly. Ah, Ji Yulingyan was stunned. Ms. Yi, then Jiang Han is really just a martial spirit, he has no qualifications. Shut up. The girl suddenly frowned, and for the first time there was a coldness in her voice, whether he is qualified or not is not up to you. Even if he really isn't, do you think you can be qualified? No one noticed that when Ji Yulingyan said the two words, Jiang Han, the girl's eyes flashed with joy. Ji Yulingyan's face suddenly turned the color of pig liver, turning blue and red, but she didn't dare to refute. Sect Master, please send someone to invite Elder Jiang to come. The girl regained her composure and said softly. Good. Li Mubai nodded, and he immediately ordered people to go to the 9th peak to ask for Jiang Han. Going to the main hall of Heavenly Sword Mountain. At the 9th peak, Jiang Han raised his eyebrows slightly and couldn't help but think of the strange bird from before. Did the sect leader say what happened? It should be, accepting disciples. The disciple who came to invite him looked a little strange. I vaguely heard that the person who came to be his disciple came from Zhongzhou. Zhongzhou. Jiang Han's eyes narrowed. No wonder there are such powerful exotic birds. They are originally from Zhongzhou. But why do people from Zhongzhou go to the eastern wilderness to become apprentices? Isn't this a matter of looking far away from the near, clearly guarding a golden mountain, but instead looking for a pile of scrap metal? Etc. Jiang Han suddenly frowned and said, what do you want me to do, an elder who is just a dabbler in the martial spirit realm? The other elders can just go. The 8 elders have all gone, but they seem to look down upon them, the disciple who delivered the message said with a bitter smile. Then it would be even more useless for me to go. Even martial sovereign doesn't like me, so how can he like my little martial soul? Jiang Han shook his head. The disciple said helplessly, hey, Uncle Jiang. This is the order of the sect master. You should leave quickly. Don't make the people in Zhongzhou unhappy later. That will be troublesome. That's fine. Jiang Han stood up, turned into a sword light, and landed on the Heavenly Sword Mountain in an instant. He strode into the main hall, clasped his hands in his fists, bowed slightly and said, I've met the sect master. Jiang Han, these are all guests from Zhongzhou, please don't neglect us. Li Mubai coughed and reminded. He was worried that Jiang Han's temper would anger these people in Zhongzhou, and even he would not be able to protect Jiang Han. Met a few fellow Taoists. Jiang Han turned around, nodded slightly at the unfamiliar faces, and took a look or two at the same time. It was obvious that the beautiful girl sitting there was the master, and the one standing behind her was the servant. What made Jiang Han secretly frightened was that each of those figures standing silently behind the girl had a terrifying aura emanating from them. 4 of them had similar auras to Li Mubai, but the old man in grey robe seemed to be nothingness. If he couldn't see it with his eyes, he would even think there was no one there. The girl suddenly sat up from the chair, with a touch of excitement that was difficult to conceal in her beautiful eyes. This scene, everyone present was surprised. This girl remained calm from beginning to end, and nothing seemed to affect her emotions. However, at this moment, it seemed as if a huge boulder had smashed into her heart, causing huge waves. Does she know Jiang Han? Could it be that Jiang Han is also from Zhongzhou? Li Mubai's pupils shrank and his thoughts surged. Wrong, he thought carefully. Jiang Han is indeed a person from Eastern Wilderness, and his information is absolutely correct. So what could be the reason for Miss Yi to have such a big reaction after seeing him? Quote. Jiang Han was also shocked. He subconsciously took 2 small steps back and looked at this beautiful girl whom he had never met before. Hello, have we met? No, the girl finally realized her gaffe, but she didn't care. In everyone's dull eyes, that flawless but always indifferent face suddenly bloomed into a beautiful smile, just like a 1,000-year-old glacier thawing and 100 flowers blooming. Hello, this is the first time we meet. My name is Yi Qingluan. Can I become your teacher? Worship me as your teacher. Jiang Han was stunned. There was deathly silence in the hall, and everyone's eyes almost popped out. Why? The same question came to their mind. Among the people present, even the weakest elder is martial sovereign, but what about Jiang Han? Martial spirit. This realm can only be said to be the one who has just officially entered the world of cultivation. In the ordinary world, he may be called a strong person, but in the sect, it is not enough. Miss Yi, Li Mubai couldn't help but said, Jiang Han has just entered the realm of martial arts. Are you sure you want him to be your master? Good. The girl nodded curtly. Her beautiful eyes still fell on Jiang Han, flashing with splendor, and there was a hint of hope deep in her pupils. Miss, I'm afraid it's inappropriate. The old man standing behind her looked at Jiang Han with careful eyes and persuaded him. The realm of martial arts is very important. You said you were going out to observe martial arts, so the family leader agreed to let you go out. If the family master knew that you worshipped a martial spirit as your teacher, I'm afraid he would be unhappy. He doesn't know. The girl stared at him sideways. Mr. Jiang, you won't tell your father, right? The old man hesitated for a moment, then smiled bitterly. Miss, I don't have to tell the master, but when you are observing martial arts, you must discuss it with me. Good. The girl chuckled lightly. Her eyes fell back on Jiang Han. Her long eyelashes blinked. I wonder if Master Jiang is willing to accept a little girl as his disciple. Quote. Jiang Han's mouth twitched. If I say I don't agree, I'm afraid I'll be slapped to death by the old man behind you, right? However, he did have doubts in his mind. This girl seems to have come specifically for him, otherwise how could any fool turn a blind eye to a group of martial sovereign and martial venerable, but choose to worship a martial soul as his teacher? He pondered for a moment. Jiang Han thought slightly. Test, if I accept her as my disciple. Buzz. A text message instantly appeared in my mind. Yi Qingluan, 9-star martial grandmaster, a person with a void destiny, a blood descendant of the mythical beast Qingluan, a return to his ancestors, and has not been activated. If you accept him as a disciple, you will get rewards, unknown. Closing square bracket. Unknown. Jiang Han's eyes narrowed slightly. This is the second time that the unknown appears. The last time was the great principal broken sword. Wait, what does the void person mean? Boy, there is nothing to hesitate about. It is your honor that my lady is willing to become your teacher. Do you really think she can learn something from you? The old man sneered. Shut up. The girl's eyes suddenly became cold to the bone. She glanced at the old man coldly, a murderous aura brewing in her beautiful eyes. Uncle Jiang, this is the first time, and I hope it will also be the last time. If I hear you being disrespectful to Master Jiang in the future, don't blame me for being ruthless. Yes. Uncle Jiang's expression changed, and he quickly bowed his head and agreed. This was the first time that he saw his young lady being so angry with him, which showed that she was really angry. How did this Eastern Wilderness native who was only in the realm of martial arts fall under the lady's eye? Looks. Do not make jokes. Although Jiang Han is indeed handsome, there are also many young elites pursuing his young lady. In terms of appearance and family background, they are all the best among them. If they knew that Yi Qingluan had taken a martial soul realm person as his disciple in the Eastern Wilderness, they would probably rush over immediately to have a look. Good. At this time, Jiang Han slowly said, I can accept you as my disciple, but disciple pays homage to master. Yi Qingluan knelt down on one knee without saying a word and made a big salute. Don't worry, listen to me first. Jiang Han frowned. Master, please speak. Yi Qingluan's eyes were bright and flashing with moving colors, completely losing the calmness and indifference before. First, let me explain in advance that I have nothing to teach you. If you want to leave, you can always. Second, you can live in the 9th peak of my dojo, but they can't. Jiang Han stretched out his hand and pointed to the people behind Yi Qingluan. Miss, you must not. The old man glanced at Jiang Han coldly. We are here to protect the safety of the young lady. If something goes wrong, how should we explain it to the head of the family? Jiang Han turned a blind eye to the old man's gaze and continued to look at the bright girl. He has already understood that this girl named Yi Qingluan has absolute right to speak, and those few people will never violate what she says. In other words, I dare not violate it. Good. Yi Qingluan agreed without hesitation. Miss. The old man's expression changed. That's it. Yi Qingluan spoke calmly, with an unquestionable tone. Uncle Jiang, you should understand my temper. What's more, even if there is any danger, your strength is enough to arrive before the danger occurs, right? As she said that, she looked at Li Mubai. Sect Master, please prepare a place for Uncle Jiang and the others. No problem. Li Mubai nodded immediately. He glanced at Jiang Han with admiration. This guy was still as arrogant as ever. He actually went against a quasi-sage. I really don't know what his brain circuit was. Master. Yi Qingluan's bright eyes were like water, his long eyelashes were blinking, and his voice was very soft. Do you have any other requests? Ah, no more. The corners of Jiang Han's eyes twitched. At this moment, he suddenly felt that Yi Qingluan was looking at him strangely, as if with a worship, respect. It's like I know him. But even if they knew each other, Jiang Han really thought that there was something in him that was worthy of being admired by this proud daughter from a large family in Zhongzhou. Return system. Not to mention whether it can be seen, even if it is really discovered that there is a system, then it should not be worship, but greed. Then let's go to the 9th peak now. Yi Qingluan asked in a tentative tone. Behind him, the old man's face twitched. In Zhongzhou, who doesn't know that Yi Qingluan, the eldest daughter of the Yi family, is famous for being a cold iceberg. Although she looks weak on the outside, her character is actually very tough, and she often speaks with an unquestionable demeanor. Moreover, she is extremely intelligent and has perfected the Yi family's magical skills when she was 10 years old. This is something that even the current head of the family cannot do. Therefore, Yi Qingluan's status in the Yi family is extraordinary. Even the head of the family will ask for her opinion on certain aspects. Have you ever spoken in such a cautious tone like now? It simply refreshed his understanding of his own lady. Jiang Han turned to look at Li Mubai. Sect Master, is there anything else you want to tell me? Go. Li Mubai nodded quickly and said, take care of Miss Yi and don't neglect it. Then these fellow Taoists. We're going to take a look at the 9th peak. The old man narrowed his eyes and stared at Jiang Han with a half smile. I can't live there. Is it okay to take a look? Please. Jiang Han shrugged indifferently, turned around and turned into a sword light, rushing towards the 9th peak. Everyone followed closely, and soon they all landed on the top of the 9th peak. What a strong evil spirit. As soon as the old man landed, his expression changed. Miss, you must not practice in this mountain, otherwise the evil spirit will enter your body and your foundation may be damaged. Master can be here, why can't I? Yi Qingluan said lightly. Uncle Jiang, you are too worried to see clearly. There are many flowers, plants and trees in this mountain. If the evil spirit really hurts the body, how can they flourish? They would have been wiped out long ago. Hear the words. The old man was startled, and after careful sensing, a look of surprise suddenly flashed in his eyes, and he said, Old slave, I'm ashamed. This mountain is quite interesting. The evil spirit is so strong, but it doesn't harm anything on the mountain. All the evil energy falls to the ground. The young lady is really wise, and I can't match it. He glanced at the top of the mountain, suddenly froze slightly, and stared at the 10,000-year-old tree demon at the edge. Martial venerable demon plant, he whispered to himself. At the same time, his nose moved and he murmured, such a strong medicinal fragrance must be at least 5,000 years old spirit medicine, and there are more than one. Ninth peak, it's not simple. This moment, the old man put away his contempt. Although the foundation is not comparable to that of the Yi family, it is still shocking enough. Even some ordinary families in Zhongzhou may not have a few 5,000-year-old spirit medicine collections. Hey, why are there so many people? A crisp voice suddenly sounded. The old man casually glanced in the direction of the sound, and suddenly his eyes froze. He stared blankly at Jiang Yi not far away, and his jaw almost dropped to the ground. Wu, Wusho sword body. He thought he was out of his mind or crazy. Just a dozen 5,000-year-old spirit medicine plants, and a demon plant from the venerable realm world. However, even with the Wugo sword body, he could no longer remain calm. This is a unique and supreme swordsmanship that is rare in 10,000 years. It can actually appear in the eastern wilderness. If those old monsters in Zhongzhou know about it, they will definitely rush over with all their strength in the next moment. No wonder the young lady would join the ninth peak. A flash of enlightenment arose in the old man's heart, and he thought he had guessed the truth. I'm afraid the young lady got the news in advance and knew that there was a Wugo sword body here, so she came here in person to prepare to take it under her command and train it carefully. After all, there are a few Wusho swords that have appeared in history. Except for those who died prematurely, no matter how bad they are, they can still reach the martial arts world. Miss, I'll take my leave. The old man decided not to stay long, so as not to interfere with his lady's plans, which would be troublesome. Brother, who is she? Jiang Yi walked quickly to Jiang Han, staring at Yi Qingluan with big eyes full of vigilance. I just accepted a disciple. Jiang Han said casually, she will live here from now on. By the way, Miss Yi. Master, you can just call this disciple, Qingluan. Yi Qingluan stepped forward and said softly. She looked at the little girl next to Jiang Han, and another gorgeous figure in red could not help but appear in her mind, and the two images gradually overlapped. The only difference between them is that one is mature and indifferent, and the other is childish and lively, but the similar outlines can already be seen in their eyebrows. The blood-clothed empress. Yi Qingluan's eyelashes trembled slightly, and he whispered as if he was dreaming, we meet again. The blood-clothed empress, no one knows her name. She likes to wear white clothes, but she is always stained red by the blood of her enemies, hence her name. She has no sword in her hand, but she can wield thousands of swords. Her light shines on Jojo, but her eyes will always only stay on one person. That person is Jiang Han, a mysterious existence known as the Emperor Master by the world human venerable. Emperor Master. Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes were filled with crystal colors. I finally found you. Previous life. She was known as the Peerless Genius, shrouded in infinite light, but she was defeated by the blood-clothed Empress sword. At that time, the Emperor's master only said one sentence to her. You're going the wrong way. The next 100 years. Her cultivation stagnated and she eventually died in a catastrophe. Unexpectedly, when she woke up, she was back to her childhood. But because of his young age, he cannot go out. Until today, her father finally relented and allowed her to go out to observe martial arts. Yi Qingluan didn't know the origin of Master Dao Emperor. He only knew that he was originally an elder of the sword sect in the eastern wilderness, so he rushed over with a very clear goal, for fear that if he was a step too late, he would miss it. Good thing. She caught up and became the first disciple of the imperial master. Thinking in his mind, Yi Qingluan raised the corners of his lips slightly and couldn't help but reveal a happy smile. Where does she live? Jiang Yi curled her lips. Our ninth peak only has a room with 2 beds. Brother, you don't want to live with her, do you? What are you talking about? Jiang Han didn't know whether to laugh or cry and patted her little head. However, this is indeed a problem. After pondering for a moment, Jiang Han looked sideways at Yi Qingluan and said, Miss Yi. Well, Qingluan, my place is relatively simple. How about asking your bodyguard to help you build a house to live in? This is not urgent. Yi Qingluan blinked and looked at Jiang Yi. Master, is this little girl also your disciple? She is my sister. Jiang Han said calmly. Right. Jiang Yi shouted, you are my brother's disciple. Even though I am young, according to seniority, you should call me Uncle Master. This title is used by both men and women. Yes, Uncle. Yi Qingluan followed her words and continued with a smile in his beautiful eyes. By the way, when we meet for the first time, I have to give Master a apprenticeship ceremony. Uncle Master, you also have a share. Said. A faint brilliance flashed on the jade bracelet on her hand, and a crystal clear bead appeared in her palm, shining with colorful light. Master. Yi Qingluan took 2 small steps forward and offered it with both hands. This is the heavenly grade treasure 5 elements royal magic bead. It can automatically absorb the power of the 5 elements. When the energy is full, it is enough to withstand a martial venerable blow. Jiang Han was speechless. Other people's apprenticeship ceremony is a gift from the master to the disciple, but when it came to him, it was reversed, and it became a gift from the disciple to the master. Showing courtesy for nothing is either cheating or stealing. Jiang Han is still wary of Yi Qingluan. Whether it was the fact that she inexplicably became a martial soul monk of hers as her teacher, or the word, unknown, given by the reporting system, it all showed that things were not simple. But, don't want it for nothing. Jiang Han took the 5 elements royal dharma pearl calmly and looked at it. 5 elements royal dharma bead, heavenly grade superior treasure. Automatically absorb the power of the 5 elements. After the energy is absorbed and filled, activate it to get rewards. 1. Generate a single elemental attribute shield that can withstand a blow from martial venerable. Closing square bracket. 2. Generate a 5-element elemental attribute shield that can withstand a blow from semi-saint. Closing square bracket. Jiang Han's heart skipped a beat. Just now, Yi Qingluan only mentioned that it could withstand a martial venerable blow, which meant that she only knew the first use of the 5 elements royal magic pearl, but she didn't know that it had a second use. After absorbing all the 5 elements attributes, he was able to block semi-saint's blow. The so-called semi-saint is actually between martial venerable and martial saint. Theoretically speaking, the realm of semi-saint is still at the level of martial venerable, but he has touched the edge of martial saint and stepped in with half a foot, so he has the absolute strength to crush martial venerable. At this time, Yi Qingluan's hand flashed with light again, and this time it was a sheathed sword. Little uncle. She handed the sword to Jiang Yi, her bright eyes curved like crescent moons. This sword is called the Ice Soul Sword, a heavenly grade middle-level magic weapon. It is made of cold iron from the sky and uses the core of 10,000 years of ice as the sword heart, forged by the master swordsmith Yang Zi of Zhongzhou. There is a magic circle engraved in this sword, which can be activated 3 times a day, called the Ice Realm. Its coverage area is centered on the Ice Soul Sword, with a radius of about 100 meters. In this area, it can freeze or slow down the movements and reaction speeds of everyone except the sword master. Jiang Yi's big eyes lit up. She quickly took the sword and played with it fondly. Suddenly, as if she had thought of something, she coughed lightly, slung the Ice Soul Sword on her back, then clasped her little hands behind her back like a little adult, looked up at Yi Qingluan, and said with a smile, "Not bad, you were interested." Jiang Han laughed. He patted Jiang Yi's head and said, "Yi, go study the Ice Soul Sword. Qingluan and I have a few words to say." Oh, Jiang Yi nodded obediently, then walked to the side to play with brisk steps. There were only 2 people left. Jiang Han stared at the pretty girl. He kept looking at her with her eyes lowered and a thin blush on her cheeks. Then he said calmly, "You worship me as your teacher and give such a big gift. What do you want? There is no one around now. You can explain it clearly." Hear the words. Yi Qingluan raised his clear beautiful eyes and said with a serious expression, "The reason why people in the world worship teachers and seek Taoism is just for 2 words, practice. Of course, the same is true for my disciples. Master, please teach me how to practice." Jiang Han frowned slightly. He stared at Yi Qingluan, unable to see the slightest hint of hypocrisy on her part. Her clear and bright eyes were full of seriousness, and her expression was particularly sincere. "A long time," he said calmly. "You are the proud daughter of the great Zhongzhou family, and you still need my guidance. I am only in the realm of martial arts, and I am still in the process of exploring it. Even if I really say it, do you dare to follow it?" "Dare." Yi Qingluan nodded heavily without any hesitation. Jiang Han was silent. He took out a chair and sat down, crossed his legs, and thought for a while before saying, "Logically speaking, with your family's background, you shouldn't be just a 9-star martial grandmaster now, right?" "Good." Yi Qingluan's bright eyes moved and he said calmly, I deliberately suppressed my realm and delayed the promotion of martial arts because once I observe the first martial spirit, the path of cultivation will basically be fixed. The realm of martial soul is very important, and the type of martial soul is often related to the path of cultivation. Then tell me, what is the first martial spirit that your family wants you to observe? Jiang Han asked. The golden feather eagle is a bloodline descendant of the ancient divine beast Dapeng golden winged eagle. Yi Qingluan said, it was raised by the disciple's family. The purity of the bloodline is about 30%, which is already considered very high. Is it an exotic bird with 30% Dapeng and golden winged eagle bloodline? Jiang Han fell into deep thought. This bloodline concentration is indeed very high. After all, the Dapeng golden winged eagle has been extinct for countless years. It is already rare to see a 30% bloodline. But Jiang Han's eyes fell on Yi Qingluan, and he muttered in his heart, awakening the bloodline. Yi Qingluan, 9-star martial grandmaster, a person with a void destiny, a descendant of the bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan, the bloodline has returned to his ancestors and has not been activated. Melt any drop of blood of a pure blood beast into clean water, bathe in it, stimulate the blood, and get rewards, activate Qingluan's blood. Closing square bracket. Jiang Han. The corners of his eyes twitched, and his look at Yi Qingluan became strange. Such a coincidence. He has nothing else but a pure blood young kun, and this Yi Qingluan needs a drop of the pure blood divine beast's blood to stimulate him in order to awaken his bloodline. In the whole world, I'm afraid this is the only one. Master, do you think disciples should visualize the golden feather eagle? Yi Qingluan asked softly. It shouldn't be. Jiang Han shook his head. There is no doubt about this. Having the bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan means that there is no need to observe any martial soul at all, because no matter monster or monster plant, they will always have only one martial soul, and that is themselves. In some ways, Yi Qingluan, who has returned to his ancestors, can actually be called a demon. Please give me guidance, Master. Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes lit up and he knelt down on one knee. You get up first. Jiang Han glanced at her and said calmly, I have a question to ask you first. Master, please speak. Yi Qingluan stood up and listened carefully. Why are you called Qingluan? Jiang Han narrowed his eyes, stared at her and asked, in other words, what did the person who gave you this name come from? Yi Qingluan hesitated for a moment and whispered, to be honest, Master, the name of this disciple is due to a legend in the family. Legend. Jiang Han raised his eyebrows lightly. Yes, Yi Qingluan said softly. According to legend, my ancestor was the mythical beast Qingluan, but because it was so long ago, the bloodline has been so weak that it almost disappeared. According to my grandfather, on the day I was born, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky, and hundreds of birds surrounded our house. Quote, and because Qingluan is one of the 5 phoenixes, my grandpa thought it was 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, and thought it was the blessing of my ancestor Qingluan, so he gave me such a name. Master, there was a look of expectation in Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes, did you see it? Kindness. Jiang Han rubbed his chin. He now probably understands that the so-called birds paying homage to the phoenix is true, but it is not because of the blessing of his ancestor Qingluan, but because the Qingluan bloodline manifested at the moment Yi Qingluan was born. Attract birds. However, because she was too far away from her ancestors, her bloodline only showed signs of returning to her ancestors but could not be activated. No doubt, if Yi Qingluan visualizes the golden winged eagle with the bloodline of the Dapeng golden winged eagle, then the Qingluan's blood hidden in her body will never be activated again and will be buried forever. I can point you in the right direction. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Han said calmly, however, if your family asks about it in the future, you must not tell them how you did it. Yes, Yi Qingluan showed a look of surprise, but soon, her pretty face became solemn and she said seriously, disciple swears, if I tell anyone about the practice method that Master taught me, I will never have the opportunity to be in the great Tao in this life. This can be called an absolute poisonous oath. Ordinary vows are actually of little use, but if you say, no chance of great Tao, then the problem will be serious. Once you violate it in the slightest, your path to practice will really be cut off. Therefore, unless there are extremely special circumstances, no one will swear such a poisonous oath. Aren't you afraid that I will lie to you? A strange light flashed in Jiang Han's eyes. Not afraid. Yi Qingluan said seriously, I believe master will not harm me. Hearing this, Jiang Han looked at her deeply. He didn't say anything more in this regard. He pondered for a while and then slowly said, there is a strange phenomenon in the sky, and hundreds of birds are paying homage to the phoenix. Actually, your grandfather's guess is right. What does master mean? Yi Qingluan looked puzzled. Qingluan is one of the 5 phoenixes. On the day you were born, hundreds of birds surrounded your house, which was indeed a vision of hundreds of birds paying homage to the phoenix. But this is not because your ancestors appeared to protect you, but because of you. Quote. Jiang Han said in a deep voice. Yi Qingluan's red lips parted slightly, pointing at herself in astonishment. Jiang Han nodded and said, you just said that your ancestor is the mythical beast Qingluan, so everyone in your tribe has a trace of Qingluan blood in their bodies. So, have you ever heard of bloodline reversion? Yi Qingluan was startled. After all, she was a reborn person, with a mature mind and quite quick thinking. She understood what Jiang Han meant instantly. Master, you mean? An abnormal blush appeared on her face, and she said in a trembling voice, the Qingluan bloodline in me has returned to its ancestors. Good. Jiang Han chuckled lightly and said, but as you said, because it is too long ago, although your bloodline has returned to your ancestors, it is hidden in the deepest part of the bloodline and has not been activated. Master, please teach me. Yi Qingluan immediately knelt on the ground, his beautiful eyes full of excitement. This moment, she suddenly understood why the Imperial Master said that she was on the wrong path in her previous life. He clearly possesses the powerful bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan and has returned to his ancestors, but he just follows the normal path of cultivation like everyone else, thus burying the greatest treasure in his body for nothing. She was extremely grateful. If you had watched the golden-winged eagle with the bloodline of the Dapeng golden-winged eagle as its martial soul, it would be too late to regret it. Fortunately, she stuck to her idea. Fortunately, she came to find the Imperial Master. Fine. All kinds of emotions surged into his heart, and Yi Qingluan was so excited that he wanted to cry. Previous life. She took the wrong path and was defeated by the blood-clothed empress with a sword. All her pride and confidence were trampled to pieces and buried. This life. Her fate finally took a crucial turn and was completely rewritten. Get up. Jiang Han said quietly, go and get a bucket of water for bathing. Yes. Yi Qingluan stood up quickly, took a step or two and suddenly paused, looked back at him, and said hesitantly, Master, can I use any water? I carry some waterfall spiritual spring and purple bamboo gold liquid with me. Quote. Jiang Han's mouth twitched without trace. An ordinary mountain spring will do. Don't you think it's a waste to use spiritual liquid? Prodigal. What a waste. The Fey waterfall spiritual spring and the purple bamboo golden liquid are both heaven and earth spiritual liquids that are hard to buy even a drop of. You actually want to use them as bath water. A big family is a big family. In the previous life, it was simply a transcendent level by Fumei. Oh, Yi Qingluan shrank his neck and murmured in a low voice, actually, as long as it can activate the blood, it's not a waste. Even if you use it to take a bath every day, it's still worth it. Stop talking nonsense. Jiang Han's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Why don't you go quickly? Watch out if I change my mind. Yes. Yi Qingluan hurriedly used his movement skills and flew into the air lightly. It seemed slow, but the speed was quite fast, and he disappeared in the blink of an eye. This is definitely a heavenly grade body fighting technique. Comparing people to each other makes people angry. Jiang Han sighed and walked towards the pool. She left. Jiang Yi was sitting on a branch, dangling a pair of white and tender feet, playing with the ice soul sword with great interest. Actually, she's quite a nice person. With such a good sword, I just give it away. This is called being rich and powerful. Jiang Han rolled his eyes. Is she really a descendant of Qingluan? The cold voice of the 1,000-year-old tree demon suddenly sounded in his mind. Right. Jiang Han nodded slightly and said thoughtfully, the bloodline returns to its ancestors, it only needs to be activated. I just don't know what level it can reach after activation. You know so much. The tone of the 1,000-year tree demon was full of sighs. I don't know that I am World Tree, but you do. Her family is so huge that they don't even know that she is a bloodline return ancestor, but you actually know. Jiang Han, I have some doubts now, are you an ancient being reincarnated? Well, I really don't know. Jiang Han laughed. He squatted by the pool and said, Xiao Yuer, how about we discuss it? Gululu. Young Kun swam lazily in the water, spitting out a string of bubbles. Give me a drop of blood. Jiang Han stretched out a finger and said with a smile, no blood essence is needed, just a drop of your ordinary blood is enough. Gulu. Young Kun suddenly turned his belly white and floated on the water. It's pretending to be dead again. On the tree, Jiang Yi dangled her little feet and said with a smile, brother, I want to drink fresh fish soup again. This fish has been pretending to be dead all day long, so why not just give it a good time? I think it's a good idea. Jiang Han smiled half-heartedly. Whoosh! Young Kun suddenly became lively and energetic, jumping 3 feet high. He glanced at Jiang Han resentfully and reluctantly squeezed out a drop of blood. If you don't shed tears until you see the coffin, why don't you just do it earlier? Jiang Han chuckled, took out a jade bottle, and collected the drop of Kunpeng's blood. Not long after, Yi Qingluan returned. She carried a large wooden bucket filled with clear mountain spring. Master, the water is here. Very good. Jiang Han nodded. Go in. Thump. Yi Qingluan simply jumped in, and her light blue dress was immediately soaked, clinging tightly to her body, outlining beautiful lines. Her cheeks were slightly red and she whispered, then what? Wait. Jiang Han took out the jade bottle containing Yukin's blood, opened the lid, and threw the jade bottle directly into the bucket. In an instant, the water in the barrel turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Master, what kind of blood is this? Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes widened. She saw clearly just now that there was only 1 drop of bright red blood in the jade bottle, but it could actually dye a bucket full of mountain spring water blood red. Blood of divine beasts, Jiang Han said lightly. Hearing this, Yi Qingluan's heart suddenly aroused huge waves. Purebred mythical beasts have long since become extinct. The blood of mythical beasts currently existing in the world can only be seen in some ancient secret realms. The number is extremely rare. Once it appears, it will be absolutely sky-high. The 5 elements royal magic pearl and the ice soul sword she gave to Jiang Han and Jiang Yi just now are not worth as much as a drop of the blood of a mythical beast. Because the former can be produced, but the latter can only be produced with 1 drop less. Master, you are willing to use the blood of divine beasts to activate the bloodline of my disciple, who I have only known for a day. Yi Qingluan's eyelashes trembled slightly, showing his inner unrest. Gouda, Gouda, the blood gradually became rippled. At this time, Jiang Han naturally didn't know what nonsense she was thinking. He looked at Yi Qingluan and frowned little by little. Yi Qingluan, 9-star martial grandmaster, a person with a void destiny, a descendant of the bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan, the bloodline has returned to his ancestors and has not been activated. You are stimulating his bloodline with Yukin's blood, and you will get rewards, 50% activation of Qingluan's bloodline. Closing square bracket. Why is it 50%? Jiang Han was extremely puzzled. The original system prompt was that if you drop a drop of the blood of a pure beast into clean water and let Yi Qingluan bathe in it, the bloodline will awaken, but it should not be only 50%. He pondered for a moment. Jiang Han stared at Young Kun in the pool. Young Kun, the cub of the ancient mythical beast, can devour all things. Feed carefully and you will be rewarded. Kunpeng. Closing square bracket. Nothing wrong. Young Kun must be a pure-blooded beast. Etc. Suddenly, Jiang Han's heart moved. Kun at this time is introduced as a cub of an ancient mythical beast, and after waiting for a period of time to be fed, it will turn into Kunpeng. Could it be said that it is not a complete body now, and it cannot be regarded as a pure-blooded mythical beast until it completely becomes Kunpeng? This is troublesome. Regardless of the specific reason, it is not good to only activate half of the bloodline. Think about it. Jiang Han's eyes fell back on Yi Qingluan, who had closed his eyes and was trying to communicate with the blood in his body, and said silently, if another drop of Young Kun's blood is added. Yi Qingluan, 9-star martial grandmaster, a person with a void destiny, a descendant of the bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan, the bloodline has returned to his ancestors and has not been activated. You are using Yukin's blood to stimulate his bloodline. If you add another drop of Yukin's blood, you will get a reward, 50% of Qingluan's bloodline will be activated. Closing square bracket. No, Jiang Han sighed. Even if another drop of Yukin's blood is added, the final reward is still 50% activation of Qingluan's bloodline. Did something go wrong? Seeing his frown, the cold voice of the 10,000-year-old tree demon sounded in his mind. Kindness. Jiang Han frowned and said through the voice, there is something wrong. Xiao Yuer's blood is not pure enough to fully activate the blood in Yi Qingluan's body. To fully activate it, you must have the blood of a mythical beast. There was a brief silence. The 1,000-year-old tree demon said quietly, look, is my blood good? Jiang Han was stunned. He quickly looked at Yi Qingluan and thought silently in his heart, if I add a drop of the blood of the world tree. Yi Qingluan, 9-star martial grandmaster, a person with a void destiny, a descendant of the bloodline of the mythical beast Qingluan, the bloodline has returned to his ancestors and has not been activated. He is stimulating his bloodline with the blood of young Kun. If he adds a drop of world tree's blood, he will get a reward, 100% activation of Qingluan's bloodline. Closing square bracket. Okay. Jiang Han's eyes lit up. There must be a road before the car reaches the mountain, and there is another village with dark willows and bright flowers. If the 10,000-year tree demon hadn't taken the initiative to speak, he would have almost ignored it. Although the world tree is not a divine beast, it is not even half inferior to the divine beast. The name, World Tree, is not for nothing. Then give it a try. The 1,000-year tree demon stretched out a green branch and extended it to the top of the barrel. Subsequently, a drop of green juice fell and soaked into the barrel. Buzz. In an instant, the blood-red water in the barrel became polarized, half as red as blood, and half as green as leaves. Gouda, Gouda. The water seemed to be boiling, bubbling constantly. Yi Qingluan's delicate body trembled slightly, and fine beads of sweat covered her jade-white forehead. Her body seemed to become hot, and streams of steam were rising. The surrounding spiritual energy went crazy, with the wooden barrel as the center, gathering crazily. Jiang Han took a few steps back and watched quietly. Sudden, he said, Senior, can you block the perception of the outside world? No need to shield. The 10,000-year tree demon said lightly, the evil aura of this mountain is a natural barrier. As long as you don't step into this mountain, all sensations will be isolated. Unless you are a martial saint, you will not be able to detect it. Where's semi-saint? Jiang Han's eyes flashed. He remembered that the old man whom Yi Qingluan called Uncle Jiang was the strong man who half-stepped into the martial saint, a semi-saint. Neither can semi-saint. The green branches and leaves of the 1,000-year-old tree demon swayed slightly, as if shaking its head. I am a demon plant, and my perception is much better than that of you humans. However, before I stepped into the 9th peak, I couldn't even detect the evil aura. Although that semi-saint is stronger than me, the gap is not huge. His perception is not as good as mine. Hear the words. Jiang Han felt relieved. Although even if it was discovered that Yi Qingluan had broken through the martial arts at this time, he could tell her to find an excuse, but it would be better if she could be isolated. At the same time, he had a new assessment of the strength of the 10,000-year tree demon. It doesn't seem to be very afraid of semi-saint. It stands to reason. Its realm is indeed martial venerable, and there should be a big gap between it and semi-saint. However, the 10,000 years dryad does not take semi-saint too seriously, but is just a little wary of it. 2. Jiang Han had a rough guess in his mind and said with a smile, the divine beast can attack the strong with the weak, and the world tree is not weaker than the divine beast, so its combat power should be much stronger than the ordinary 1,000-year tree demon. What's more, it was born with intelligence when it was still a seed, and it follows the martial emperor Xiaoyao. There is really no need to be afraid of a semi-saint. At this moment, a strange blue line appeared between Yi Qingluan's eyebrows, and a faint green aura filled his beautiful eyes, like misty water waves or a small flame burning. Boom! The phantom of a blue divine bird suddenly appeared behind her. Its wings were spread out, its long tail feathers dragged on the ground, it looked up to the sky and chirped, and its eyes were burning with green flames. Thump! Suddenly, the young coon in the pool slapped the water, jumped up high, his eyes flashed with green light, and stared intently at Qingluan's shadow. Next moment, the red scales on its body quickly retracted into its body. At the same time, wisps of black feathers emerged from the body surface, and the fish's beak gradually changed towards the direction of the bird's beak. Kindness. Jiang Han felt something and looked back in shock. This Could it be that the ancient bloodline in Yukin's body, stimulated by the atavistic bloodline activated by Yi Qingluan, is about to start transforming into a rock? Ba! Qingluan sings. Light cyan flames enveloped Yi Qingluan, and the water in the barrel evaporated at a speed visible to the naked eye. The red and green blood energy turned into mist, entangled and colliding with each other in the air. At the same time, young Kun was also changing rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it no longer looked like a fish and turned into a petite and exquisite rock. Black light shrouded it like a big cocoon. Is this killing two birds with one stone? Jiang Han looked strange. No, it should be said that it is mutually beneficial. Because of the blood of Yukun and the World Tree, Yi Qingluan's atavistic bloodline can be fully awakened, and because of Yi Qingluan's destiny martial spirit, the mythical beast Qingluan, young Kun is stimulated to a certain extent and transforms into a rock. Not far away, the 1,000-year-old tree demon watched this scene quietly, with a slight wave of emotion in his heart. It originally thought that the little fish just had the blood of the ancient Kunpeng, but the moment it turned into a Peng, its true identity was confirmed. Kunpeng, a pure-blooded Kunpeng. Because of a very simple reason, except for the real Kun and Peng, no living being can transform between Kun and Peng. Even if he has 99% Kunpeng bloodline, it won't work. As for the reason, have no idea. Anyway, this is recognized by the world. In ancient times, there was a Dapeng with the highest concentration of Kunpeng bloodline in history. Although it was extremely powerful and dominated an era, it would always be in the form of a Dapeng and could not transform into a Kun fish body. Although Qingluan is one of the 5 phoenixes, he should not be inferior to Kunpeng. Jiang Han said to himself. Although there are no specific ancient books recording this, in some ancient mythical legends, Qingluan often becomes the mount of some peerless powers, but Kunpeng does not. There is no big doubt about whether one is strong or weak. While Jiang Han was thinking, Yi Qingluan finally completely integrated the bloodline hidden in his body. She opened her beautiful eyes, and a faint cyan aura filled the depths of her pupils. The strange cyan lines between her eyebrows were like a small flame, adding a sense of enchantment to her. Master, Yi Qingluan stood up lightly. The water mist on her clothes evaporated automatically, and she landed gracefully. She bowed and saluted Jiang Han, with an inexplicable emotion in her respectful tone. Disciple, thank you so much for your guidance, Master. This kindness is as great as recreating it. This moment, she truly knew how powerful the bloodline was in her body. Without Jiang Han, when she was reborn, even though she could go further and higher than in her previous life, she would still be limited because there was no activated Qingluan's blood in her body, which would hinder her path. But now, her future is completely different. Get up. Jiang Han accepted the gift calmly. Have to say, Yi Qingluan's luck is really good. If she hadn't seen herself, she would have been completely buried. After all, in the whole world, the only one with the divine beast and the world tree. I'm afraid, she is the only one. Master, Yi Qingluanming's eyes fell on Kunpeng next to him, and he hesitated slightly. Could that drop of divine beast blood just now be? That's it, Jiang Han said lightly. Can you feel it? Kindness. Yi Qingluan nodded and said softly. I can clearly feel that its bloodline is extremely powerful. Even though I have activated the Qingluan blood in my body at this time, I still feel depressed. Could it be the Dapeng golden winged eagle? She didn't know that the little rock in front of her in the cocoon of light was the young Kun in the pool. Almost. Jiang Han said noncommittally, this matter must not be mentioned to anyone. You should remember the oath you swore. Master, don't worry. Hearing this, Yi Qingluan's pretty face became solemn and said seriously, this disciple knows the importance of this and will definitely not tell anyone about it, including my parents. Very good. Jiang Han nodded with a smile, pondered for a moment, and then ordered, in addition, you must conceal the awakening of your bloodline first, and don't leave the 9th peak during this period. Can you hide the mark between your eyebrows? Can. A light cyan halo appeared in Yi Qingluan's eyes. She stretched out her tender white fingers and lightly tapped her eyebrows. The cyan mark immediately disappeared and disappeared. Think about it. She took out a golden jade pendant from the storage bracelet and hung it around her waist. In an instant, she seemed to become an ordinary person. There is no aura of monks at all. Kindness. Jiang Han looked surprised. This jade pendant. Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes were full of smiles, and he said, Master, I don't know. This jade pendant can conceal the cultivation level of a monk. It was specially made by my father. No one below the martial saint can detect my cultivation level. Nice one. Jiang Han smacked his lips. I don't know how many years the Yi family in Zhongzhou has gone through. Since they are descendants of Qingluan, they have been passed down from ancient times to the present at least. Counting it, it is more than hundreds of thousands of years. That's right, Master. Yi Qingluan seemed to have remembered something, and suddenly said, the disciple got a very strange fragment at an auction in Zhongzhou. After the master's appraisal, it was supposed to be a bell, but it was broken for some reason. Said, there was a flash of light in her hand, and a fragment appeared, and she handed it to Jiang Han. The disciple's father once tried to attack it with Dao soldiers, but he couldn't leave any trace on it. Master, please watch it. Jiang Han reached out and took it. He did not look immediately, but looked at Yi Qingluan and asked, I have 2 questions. First, what is a Taoist soldier? Second, at what level is your father's cultivation level? Generally speaking, the grades of weapons are divided into heaven and earth, black and yellow. Yi Qingluan explained, Dao soldiers are also called holy weapons, which are 1 level higher than heavenly grade. Only by becoming a martial saint can you forge Dao soldiers with your own Dao fire as your natal weapon. As for my father's cultivation level, he is martial saint, but the disciple doesn't know how many stars it is. Those above heavenly grade are Dao soldiers. Jiang Han frowned. As for Yi Qingluan's father being a martial saint, it was within his expectation, and the reason why he asked was just to make sure. After pondering for a while, he asked again, are there any levels above Dao soldiers? Have. Yi Qingluan tapped Zhen's head, Emperor weapon. The Emperor weapon is a magical weapon that can only be forged by the martial emperor. Even if ordinary people get the Emperor weapon, they cannot control it. They must at least reach the martial venerable level to exert a trace of the Emperor weapon's power. What about the Emperor weapon? Jiang Han asked. On top of the Emperor weapon. A flash of thought flashed in Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes, I don't know. However, there must be a higher level above, but the martial god has not appeared for tens of thousands of years, so no one should know about it. Jiang Han fell into deep thought. He thought for a long time and then slowly said, since there are holy weapons and Emperor weapon is weapons, what about the techniques? Are they also available? No. Yi Qingluan shook his head decisively, the skills are only divided into heavenly grade Xuanwang 4th grade. The highest level skills I have seen so far are only heavenly grade middle level, such as my family's inherited skills. Not to mention currently, even in her past life, she had never heard of any other levels above heavenly grade. Is this so? Jiang Han was thoughtful. It seems that the scripture of indestructibility he cultivated is indeed a miraculous skill of ancient times and the present, and its grade is good fortune. Shake his head. Jiang Han didn't ask any more questions and turned his gaze to the fragment in his hand. The Chaos Bell fragment has been severely damaged and its origin is unknown. It is suspected to be left by the ancient power. After watching, you can get rewards. Martial Spirit, Chaos Bell fragment location information of the ancient Golden Crow tomb. Closing square bracket. Chaos Bell. The memory turned around in his mind, and the corners of his eyebrows twitched. It's related to the Golden Crow. Could it be the Eastern Emperor's bell? There's the immortal executing sword in the front, and the Chaos Bell in the back. Jiang Han couldn't help but start to wonder, could this world be related to the mythical passed down from ancient times on Earth? Anyway, since this clock is called Chaos, and is similar to the introduction of the immortal executing sword, it must also be a treasure. The question is, do you want to observe for a while? Jiang Han was a little confused. Although the immortal executing sword was damaged, the fragments happened to turn into 10 mountain peaks, and they could be pieced together. But the Chaos Bell was different, there was only 1 fragment left. However, if you don't observe it, you won't get the location information of the ancient Golden Crow tomb. Master, Yi Qingluan called carefully. Kindness. Jiang Han came to his senses and said, this fragment is indeed from an ancient bell, but it is too damaged and is of no use anymore. He told the truth. That is to say, he has a reward system. He can use this fragment the size of a fingernail to observe the Chaos Bell martial spirit. If it were anyone else, he would not be able to observe anything in his life. All right. Yi Qingluan nodded lightly. Lend me the fragment for a day. Jiang Han looked at Yi Qingluan and said, I will study it further. Since it's of no use, then give it to master. Yi Qingluan squinted and smiled, his bright eyes curved like crescent moons. Anyway, the disciple can only keep it as a collection. Jiang Han muttered, that's fine. I'll tell you when I find out something. Good. Yi Qingluan nodded vigorously. Master, I'm going to retreat first. I just awakened my bloodline and my body is still not used to it. Go ahead. Jiang Han waved his hand. After Yi Qingluan bowed and resigned, he walked down the mountain with brisk steps and came to the 9th peak. He casually opened a cave mansion and prepared to retreat to digest today's harvest. Master should be satisfied, right? She sat cross-legged, green flames surrounding her body, and muttering in her heart. If I remember correctly, when I was defeated by the blood-clothed empress in my previous life, my storage bracelet was also chopped into pieces by a sword energy, and a bunch of treasures fell out of it, but master only took away this fragment. Obviously, the origin of this fragment should not be simple, otherwise how could Jiang Han, who has become the imperial master, value it? Yi Qingluan also suddenly remembered and sent him out along the way. To her, being able to become the disciple of the emperor's master is already the greatest opportunity. I don't know how many people in future generations want to worship Jiang Han as their master, but they are all in vain. At this moment, Yi Qingluan's complexion changed slightly, and a simple bronze mirror appeared in her hand. Ripples appeared on the mirror surface, trembling slightly. She quickly calmed down the aura on her body, and the mark that had just appeared between her eyebrows disappeared again. Then she rubbed her face to calm her expression, and then she reached out and touched the mirror lightly. Buzz! The mirror flickered, and a majestic face appeared. Father, is something wrong? Chapter 56. Nothing. In the mirror, the majestic-looking middle-aged man smiled gently. I just heard from Laozhong that you have become a disciple in the eastern wilderness. The other party seems to be a small martial soul monk. Yes. Yi Qingluan nodded calmly. She was not surprised. She had obviously guessed that Uncle Jiang, who was responsible for protecting her, would report the matter as soon as possible. Why? The middle-aged man frowned and looked at her. Father, we have agreed before that you are not allowed to interfere with me while I am out. Yi Qingluan snorted softly. If you insist on taking care of it, then I will just find a martial spirit. Go watch. No, no, no. The middle-aged man said quickly. My dear daughter, aren't you worried about your lack of experience and being deceived by others? Well, you just need to tell your father why you want to become a martial soul master. As long as the reason is justified, your father will never interfere again. Yi Qingluan was silent. She lowered her head, thought for a long time, slowly raised her beautiful eyes, and said softly. I can't say. Father, have you ever seen me do anything wrong since I was a child? I can only guarantee that my choice will never let you down. Hear the words. The middle-aged man frowned. He was silent for a long time, then sighed softly, and said helplessly, that's all, women are not allowed to stay in college. Qingluan, I only have one request as a father, and that is, don't gamble with your future. My daughter understands. Yi Qingluan nodded seriously. Buzz. The mirror surface rippled, and the middle-aged man disappeared on it. She stretched out her white and tender fingers and gently pressed her eyebrows, and the hidden cyan mark resurfaced. Phew! A faint cyan flame enveloped her. Father, although you are a martial saint, in terms of vision, you are far inferior to the Emperor Master who is just a martial soul. Yi Qingluan muttered to himself. Under the burning of the green flames, every inch of her clothes was annihilated, and the shadow of Qingluan martial spirit that emerged behind her suddenly opened its eyes. Qingluan is me, I am Qingluan. Yi Qingluan murmured softly, his voice as ethereal as if he was talking in sleep. Her jade-white body curled up together, and her green wings spread out behind her, covering her whole body. Zhongzhou. The middle-aged man who had just finished talking to Yi Qingluan frowned. She has actually observed Wuhan. Although Yi Qingluan had a jade pendant that could conceal his aura, you must know that he had originally refined the jade pendant, so how could he have concealed it from him? Qingluan has always been smart since she was a child. I even have to ask her for advice on many things. It stands to reason that I would not observe martial arts for no reason, let alone just worship a small martial spirit as my teacher. She definitely did it for a reason. Thought for a long time. The middle-aged man stretched out his finger and tapped the ancient mirror in front of him. Buzz. After a few seconds, Uncle Zhang's figure appeared inside. Old Zhang. The middle-aged man muttered, "How's the matter I just told you?" "Master, I have asked you clearly," Uncle Zhang said respectfully. The master of the sword sect said that the person whom the young lady was apprenticed to was named Jiang Han, and he was indeed a person from the eastern wilderness. He was born with a weak heart and was unable to practice. Later, he picked up a Xuanbing Buddha lotus in Linglong Pavilion and reshaped it. Only then can you practice the meridians. Later, he had a falling out with his family and came to the sword sect with a little girl he picked up on the road. By the way, head of the family, that little girl is not simple, she has a Wuguo sword body. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed. Wuguo sword body? Are you sure? It can't be wrong, Uncle Zhang said categorically. I didn't dare to be completely sure at first, so I specifically asked the sword sect master and got confirmation. She is indeed the Wuguo sword body. Those who have anything to do with swords know everything. Those who have nothing to do with swords know nothing. And this is exactly the characteristic of the Wuguo sword body. Hear the words. The middle-aged man's eyes suddenly brightened, and the cyan flames shone brightly. He said solemnly, "No matter what the price, I must take that Wusui sword body into my Yi family." This. Uncle Zhang had a troubled look on his face. Let's not hide this from the master. The young lady has ordered that the old slave is not allowed to enter the 9th peak. Oh, the middle-aged man raised his brows slightly, pondered for a moment, and nodded slightly. Since it is Qingluan's request, then just do it. She should have already made a plan. Yes, Zhang Bo nodded in agreement. After thinking for a while, he spoke again. In my opinion, there should be a mysterious strong man behind Jiang Han. There is no problem with his origin, but on the 9th peak, there is a demon plant from the venerable realm world, and at least a dozen old plants. Up to 5,000 years of spirit medicine. You mean? The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes slightly. I suspect that there is probably a martial saint standing behind Jiang Han. Uncle Zhang whispered. Interesting. The middle-aged man chuckled softly. Okay, let's do that. Say it. He clicked on the mirror and the picture disappeared. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table, and after a moment, he said calmly. Someone is coming. Yes. In the corner beside the wall, a group of shadows slowly arched up, gathered into a human shape, and made a deep sound. Spread the word. The middle-aged man had an expressionless face and said indifferently, just say that Qingluan left Zhongzhou and has arrived in the eastern wilderness. Yes. The shadow made a promise and disappeared. Martial saint. The middle-aged man's mouth curled up with a cold and chilling arc. Oh, it's not like I haven't killed before. If Qingluan's practice of martial arts is affected because of you this time, I will let you die without a burial. The 9th peak. Jiang Han held the chaos bell fragment in his hand and thought for a long time, but still did not go to observe it immediately. Anyway, there is no rush. He only has 4 martial spirits now, namely World Tree, Kunpeng, Immortal Executing Sword, Bronze Temple. Correct. Jiang Han suddenly slapped his forehead. Speaking of the Bronze Temple, there is also a legacy left by Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. During this time, he actually forgot about it. I wonder what was left behind. Jiang Han put the chaos bell fragment into the storage ring, then stretched out his hand, and a small bronze temple slowly appeared in his palm. It can be big or small, and can be used as a weapon when necessary. Boom! Jiang Han casually threw it aside, and the bronze temple grew on the ground and became the size of an ordinary house. The ancient bronze palace. The voice of the 1,000-year-old tree demon rang in my mind. Can I go in and have a look? Certainly. Jiang Han smiled and nodded. In the temple, he can master all the information, not to mention that the temple has recognized him as its master. Unless he takes the initiative to transfer, there is no need to worry about the 10,000-year-old tree demon having any evil intentions. Thank you. The branches and leaves of the world tree trembled slightly. Subsequently, a vague figure walked out of the tree trunk, wearing a long turquoise dress. Her face could not be seen clearly, but judging from the slender figure, it was undoubtedly a woman. Senior, why don't you just turn into a human form? Jiang Han asked curiously. You know, with the powerful cultivation of the 10,000-year-old tree demon, it has long been able to transform into human form. Not used to it. The 10,000-year tree demon was silent for a moment, and said quietly, I didn't know it at first, but now I guess it may be related to the fact that my body is the world tree. After turning into a human form, the speed of cultivation will slow down. All right. Jiang Han shrugged and walked into the bronze temple first, followed closely by the 10,000-year tree demon. The moment he walked in, his eyes suddenly opened up. What came into view was the extremely grand interior of the temple. It was not the interior that everyone who had entered the emperor's tomb had seen before, but the real inside. That is, Jiang Han's eyes narrowed slightly. In the middle of the hall, an ancient coffin hangs in the air. Huge chains extended on the walls of the hall, locking the ancient coffin tightly. There were also strange lines carved on them, as if they were suppressing something. The body of the 1,000-year-old tree demon shook slightly, and its eyes were filled with shock. It's the coffin of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. What? Jiang Han changed color slightly. He thought it was Xiaoyao Martial Emperor suppressing some kind of monster, but he didn't expect it to be the coffin of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor himself. This is strange. Why did he lock himself? You sure? The corners of Jiang Han's eyes twitched. I'm pretty sure. The 1,000-year-old tree demon's eyes became extremely solemn, because I personally watched the Martial Emperor lie in this coffin. I was deeply impressed and I will definitely remember it. Jiang Han fell silent. His eyes fell on a table not far away and he walked over. There is a simple ring on the table, and there is a piece of paper next to it, which reads, The inheritance is all in this ring, you can get it by recognizing the owner. Jiang Han thought for a while, picked it up, and said silently, If you recognize the Lord Xiaoyao Martial Emperor's ring, Saint Grade Middle Level Law Treasure. After recognizing the master, you can get rewards, the entire inheritance of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. After confirming that it was correct, Jiang Han simply dripped a drop of blood. Next moment, the ancient ring glowed, and information about the ancient ring suddenly appeared in Jiang Han's mind, and there was a faint voice. Congratulations, you have completely obtained my inheritance. But there is one thing, I must remind you. Never touch the hanging coffin, and do not try to unlock its seal, even though you have this ability at this time. My body is indeed buried in that coffin. But it's not me either. That's all I've said, so you can take care of yourself. The faint voice gradually disappeared, with a hint of bitter smile and desolation. Jiang Han exhaled a thick breath. He looked at the hanging ancient coffin, and he was filled with curiosity. He wanted to know what would happen if the seal was unlocked. How? The 10,000-year tree demon looked at him from the side. If Xiaoyao Martial Emperor is not lying, it is indeed him inside. Moreover, he also specifically asked me not to try to unlock the seal of the coffin. Maybe, before he died, he noticed that his body would transform. Jiang Han said slowly, Evil dead. The tone of the 1,000-year tree demon was full of doubts. How could the corpse of the Martial Emperor transform into a corpse? The root cause of the corpse transformation is that it was invaded by evil spirits, leading to mutation. But at that level, everything is invulnerable. Even if it falls, it will not be invaded by anything. No evil spirits dare to offend, right? Hearing this, Jiang Han shook his head. The world is too big. Xiaoyao Martial Emperor was amazingly talented and beautiful. He became emperor after 100 years. Wasn't he also attacked by unknown creatures in the Chaos Sea and died with hatred? Corpse transformation is not impossible. Think for a moment. Jiang Han stared at the hanging coffin and thought silently in his heart, if I unlock the seal now. Xiaoyao Martial Emperor's coffin, Emperor Grade's superior law treasure, Xiaoyao Martial Emperor's lifelong effort to cast, has the ability to suppress evil spirits. If you unlock the seal at this time, you will get a reward. The corpse demon comes out of the coffin and bleeds for thousands of miles. Closing square bracket. Corpse demon. Jiang Han's pupils suddenly contracted. At this moment, he was convinced that Xiaoyao Martial Emperor noticed before he died that he might change after death, so he cast the coffin in advance and used the power of the bronze temple to suppress it. The corpse demon came out of the coffin and bled for thousands of miles. A martial emperor's corpse turns into a demon. Even if there is no memory of his life, he is still a martial emperor. That terrifying body alone is enough to easily crush martial saint. At some point, it may become a life-saving law treasure. Jiang Han thought to himself. If you encounter a fatal life and death crisis, release the corpse demon without saying a word, and you can hide in the bronze temple, wait for the corpse demon to massacre and leave, and then run away. Do you see anything? The 10,000-year tree demon asked from the side. Jiang Han nodded slightly. This coffin cannot be moved. The body of the martial emperor has turned into a corpse demon. It cannot escape because of the suppression of the coffin and the bronze temple. If it is allowed to escape, it will definitely bleed into a river. Pity. Jiang Han thought to himself as he spoke, if it could be retracted and released freely, this corpse demon would be a weapon to kill the enemy. It's so sad. The 10,000 years dryad sighed softly. The Empress has been proud of the heroes of the world and wiped out all enemies throughout her life. How glorious is this? I didn't expect that after her death, she would end up like this. Jiang Han also sighed. This is the cruel reality. Even if you are blessed with all kinds of glory during your lifetime, you will never find peace after death. Wait a moment. A flash of light suddenly flashed in Jiang Han's mind. He turned to look at the 10,000 years dryad in astonishment. Did you just say Empress? Yes. The tree demon nodded slightly and asked doubtfully, what's wrong? Is there any problem? Big problem. Jiang Han's head became messy and he said blankly, is Xiaoyao martial emperor a woman? You do not know. The 1,000-year-old tree demon looked at him in surprise. Didn't you hear the words the Empress left before she died? Her voice was sweet and light, like a wind chime. Could it be that you couldn't hear it? Jiang Han was stunned. He definitely heard it right. The voice left by Xiaoyao martial emperor was definitely a male voice. Why does the 10,000-year-old tree demon say that Xiaoyao martial emperor is a woman? It can't lie to itself, so, what exactly is the problem? Looking at the hanging coffin, Jiang Han used all his strength to turn his head away, suppressing the urge to open the coffin and take a look. Let's go. Jiang Han turned around, walked towards the outside of the palace, and whispered, I'm afraid if I stay a little longer, I won't be able to help but open the coffin and examine him. I really want to know if there is Xiaoyao martial emperor inside. He realized that there might not be the body of Xiaoyao martial emperor inside. Because the system introduced it just now as Xiaoyao martial emperor's coffin, and the reward was, the corpse demon came out of the coffin, bleeding for thousands of miles, but it didn't even mention who was buried inside. The 10,000 years dryad shuddered and quickly followed behind. Curiosity killed the cat. Don't seek death. You don't want to live, but I still want to. Don't worry, I'm just thinking about it. Jiang Han curled his lips. Curiosity killed the cat. Did you hear this from Xiaoyao martial emperor? How do you know? The 10,000-year tree demon was stunned. Jiang Han laughed softly. There is no such thing in this world, and only his fellow villagers who transmigrated here in advance can say this. Seeing that he didn't say anything, the 10,000 years dryad didn't ask any questions. She walked side by side with Jiang Han and suddenly said, did you forget something? What's up? Jiang Han said casually. Have you forgotten? You promised me before that you would tell me the truth of the world. The tree demon frowned. Oh, this. Jiang Han suddenly realized that he had really forgotten this matter. Actually, it's nothing. Let me ask you a question first. Do you believe that the world is unique? Do not believe. The 1,000-year dryad thought for a while, shook his head and said, I was very bored when I was in the emperor's tomb, and I kept thinking about one thing. Since the emperor's tomb is a small world opened by Xiaoyao martial emperor, could this huge world outside also be created by a powerful being? Interesting idea. Jiang Han laughed. The so-called truth is similar to your imagination. I don't know whether this world was created by others. However, there is indeed a bigger world outside it. Compared with it, this world is as small as a grain of sand. That scene came to Jiang Han's mind again. I don't know how many sacred turtles, big or small, are swimming in the boundless Yang, heading for unknown destinations. Anyone who sees them will be shocked and sigh at their own insignificance. The 1,000-year-old tree demon was stunned and silent for a long time. It's useless to think too much. Jiang Han shook his head and said softly, before you reach that level, you don't need to think too much. If the sky falls, there will be tall people who can hold it up. He put away the bronze temple, then settled down and looked at the legacy in the ring. It contains the exercises and combat skills practiced by Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. Immortal heavenly power. Jiang Han frowned. Looking at Xiaoyao Martial Emperor's notes, this technique should be an advanced heavenly grade. It was originally a remnant of the Bronze Temple and was later obtained by Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. However, although this technique is powerful, it is still not as good as the creation technique, scripture of indestructibility, he practiced. Is it just a talk about the most powerful skills created by heaven and earth that are most suitable for humanoid creatures to practice? It's just that the names are a bit similar. Shaking his head, Jiang Han looked at the combat skills book next to him and whispered, "Kill me. Ming Dao Ju. The secret of killing me to Ming Dao, the supreme skill. Cut off the old self, use your heart to understand the Dao, transcend the present self, realize the Dao of the future, and clearly see my heart. After practicing, you can get rewards, the birth of a divine fetus." Closing square bracket. This combat skill. Jiang Han's eyebrows furrowed little by little, and a trace of surprise flashed in his dark eyes. Judging from its introduction, it should be that a new divine fetus was born outside the original body, which is equivalent to another self. Could it be that, did Xiaoyao Martial Emperor give birth to a new divine fetus before his death? Probably. Jiang Han squinted his eyes. Before something happened, Xiaoyao Martial Emperor would definitely not want to give birth to another self, but she was about to die and had such a unique combat skill, how could she not take a gamble? Think so. Nowadays, the divine fetus of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor should still be alive in the world, and the hanging coffin is probably her previous life. So, she specifically warned not to release the hanging corpse, firstly because she turned into a corpse demon, and secondly because she didn't want herself to affect herself. In fact, the corpse that turned into a corpse demon might be her. His handiwork. Jiang Han took a deep breath. Now that tens of thousands of years have passed, even if her divine fetus is not the best in the world, it is definitely a big shot, right? He gathered his thoughts and put away this combat skill. Naturally, he would not practice or allow a new self to be born. Besides, among the inheritance of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor, there are two combat skills from the Bronze Temple. One is called Flying Immortal Technique, and the other is called God-Saving Technique. Jiang Han's eyes fell on it, and the text message appeared in his mind. Flying Immortal Technique, the Supreme Secret Technique. From the flesh body, the divine fetus of Yuanling emerges. Its attack power is unparalleled in the world and can kill immortals and gods. Practice in the Bronze Temple and take the Exorcist Immortal Grass, and you will get rewards. The first level of the Flying Immortal art is complete. Closing square bracket. The secret technique of saving gods, the supreme secret technique. This technique does not control spiritual thoughts, but points directly to the source, making people surrender unconsciously, which is extremely evil. The higher the talent, the more profound the influence of this technique will be. Practicing in the Bronze Temple and taking the heart-saving lotus will give you rewards. The first level of the God-saving technique is complete. Closing square bracket. Jiang Han's eyes twitched wildly. These two secret arts are unparalleled. Xiaoyao Martial Emperor must have practiced them before, but even so, she was still beaten to the point of being almost seriously injured and dying in the Sea of Chaos, and died with hatred, which shows how powerful the creatures of the Sea of Chaos are. But, after all, Xiaoyao Martial Emperor has no reward system. She can only explore and practice little by little. I am afraid she has not been able to master these two terrible secret skills. Relegated Immortal Grass, Heart-Saving Lotus. Think for a moment. Jiang Han looked at the 10,000 years dryad beside him and said, "Senior, do the villagers in Spirit Medicine Village have any immortal grass or heart-drying lotus?" "There is a banished fairy grass." The 10,000 years dryad thought for a while and said, "But there is no heart lower lotus." "Why, do you need these two spirit medicines?" "Good." Jiang Han smiled and nodded. He raised his foot and stepped hard on the ground. After a while, a small head popped out and said, "Peak Master, what are your orders?" "Let the immortal grass come over," Jiang Han said lightly. "Yes." The little head burrowed back into the soil, but within 10 seconds, a figure climbed to the top of the peak, and respectfully saluted to the 10,000 years dryad and Jiang Han. "Senior, Peak Master, call this junior to come forward." "I don't know what your instructions are." "Are you the immortal grass?" Jiang Han looked at the young man in front of him. Yes. The young man nodded. I need to use your leaves, but they won't be used in vain. As he spoke, Jiang Han flicked his finger, and a drop of milky white spiritual liquid flew out from the Xiaoyao Great Emperor's ring, floating in front of the young man. This is a drop of 10,000-year stone milk, which is enough to replenish your losses. Yes. The young man was immediately overjoyed. He quickly grabbed his left arm with his right hand, pulled hard, and turned into a long blade of grass after leaving his body. He handed it to Jiang Han with both hands, and then swallowed the drop of 1,000-year stone milk in one gulp. Next moment, his lost arm grew back, and his aura was slightly stronger than before. Peak Master, do you have any other instructions? The young man looked at Jiang Han with even more respect. If nothing happens, I will go down and digest the Peak Master's gift. Gone. Jiang Han waved his hand casually. Then Junior, please resign. The young man retreated happily. You are very generous. When the young man's figure disappeared, the 10,000-year-old tree demon said quietly, 10,000-year stone milk is something you can only meet but cannot ask for. Just now I helped your disciple awaken his bloodline, why don't you express your gratitude? What did Senior say? Jiang Han smiled softly. He took out 10 drops of 10,000-year-old stone milk from the ring again and handed it over. Although it is my disciple who should thank you, since I am her teacher, there is no harm in thanking you on your behalf. You have a conscience. The 1,000-year-old tree demon's voice was a little softer. There is no need to call me Senior from now on, it's too unfamiliar. Speaking of which, I don't have a name yet, why don't you give me one? Hear the words. Jiang Han was stunned and waved his hands quickly. No, my name-taking skills are too poor. I don't mind it. The 10,000-year tree demon glanced at him. Then, okay, then I can just take it as I please. Jiang Han fell into deep thought and said after a while, since you are a demon trained by the World Tree, why not call yourself, Yao Yao? Yao Yao. The 1,000-year-old tree demon frowned slightly, a demon planted by demons. Dislike. Jiang Han thought for a while, and his eyes suddenly brightened. Then let's call it, Yao Yao. As the saying goes, the peach blossoms are shining brightly. The word Yao Yao is usually used to describe the lush branches and leaves, which is quite similar to you. It fits. Recipe, shining. The 10,000 years tree demon recited it twice before showing a smile and said, okay, let's call it Yao Yao. From now on, I will call you, Tang Yao Yao. Why is the surname Tang? Jiang Han was puzzled. This is the surname of Xiaoyao Martial Emperor. The 10,000 years dryad said softly, I am today thanks to her blessing, so I take her last name as my last name. It can be regarded as a thank you for her great kindness like a parent. I see. Jiang Han suddenly realized it and secretly wrote down the surname, Tang, in his heart. Somebody is coming. Tang Yao Yao's illusory figure suddenly disappeared. Jiang Han raised his eyebrows slightly, put away the leaves of the immortal grass in his hand, and turned to look at a figure coming from the sky. The figure was suspended in the air and did not come down. There was a hint of fear in his eyes, and he said loudly, Wang Heming, an inner disciple of the 7th peak, has been ordered by Master to invite Master Zhang to visit the 7th peak. Go to the 7th peak for a talk. A strange light flashed in Jiang Han's eyes. Could that old guy Ji Yulinyan finally be able to stand it no longer? Originally she did not take herself seriously and even dared to order her apprentice to kill her, but now it is different. Not only does the demon plant Martial Venerable sit on the 9th peak, but Yi Qingluan from Zhongzhou also worships him as his disciple. Think for a moment. Jiang Han raised his head and smiled. Okay, you go tell Elder Ji Yu and I will go later. Yes. The 7th peak disciple received Jiang Han's response and flew away as if running away. It's as if the 9th peak is some sort of dragon's pond and tiger's den. Yi. Jiang Han turned to look at Jiang Yi sitting on the branch of the world tree and said with a smile, give me your necklace. Oh. Jiang Yi jumped down from the tree, took off the necklace from her neck, and handed it to him. Brother, shall I go to the 7th peak with you? Need not. Jiang Han touched her head, chuckled, and looked sideways at World Tree. Senior, no, Yao Yao, come with me. Buzz. The graceful shadow walked out of the tree trunk again, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into Jiang Han's ring. Are you sure you want to go? At this time, Nangong Wan, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up again, Ji Yulinyan's backstage is huge, don't take it lightly. Her father is the elder of the sword sect. I thought you would be silent forever. Jiang Han turned into a ray of sword light and swept towards the seventh peak. What kind of cultivation level are the elders of the previous generation now? Also, I have always been curious, where did those previous elders go? Martial Venerable, Nangong Wan whispered, I don't know the specific star rating. It shouldn't be Martial Saint. As for the sect leaders and elders of the past dynasties, about half of them are practicing in seclusion in the sword world. The sword world is a small world similar to the Emperor's tomb, which was opened by the founder of the sword sect. Hear the words. There was a hint of surprise in Jiang Han's eyes. In other words, there are actually quite a few martial venerables from the sword sect in charge now. He also thought that the leader of the sword sect was the strongest person in the sword sect. Did not expect. There is also a sword world. It is conceivable that the sect leaders and elders of the past generations are now at least martial venerable. Maybe. And martial saint. The age of the sword sect's existence cannot be measured, it must be at least tens of thousands of years. It may not be impossible for one or two old monsters to be in seclusion in the sword world. Yes, Nangong Wan's tone was solemn and she said in a deep voice. Sword sect has been able to stand in the eastern wilderness for countless years without falling. How can it be that it does not have a profound foundation? Not only sword sect, but also the other four parallel sects, such as Iron Sword Gate, War Demon Palace, etc., also have at least 20. The above martial venerable is in charge. Interesting. The corners of Jiang Han's mouth raised slightly. Don't underestimate Ji Yulinyan's father. After all, he is an elder from the previous generation. The martial venerable demon planned next to you may not be his opponent. Even if the two are on par. But you have to know that this is sword sect. Seeing that Jiang Han didn't take it seriously, Nangong Wan quickly persuaded him again, the Supreme Elder is not just a person. His master and disciples are now practicing in the sword world. Brothers fighting tigers, father and son going into battle. Jiang Han smiled lowly. He didn't care too much, not to mention that although the world tree is martial venerable, its combat power cannot be measured by common sense. Just like a divine beast and an ordinary beast, even if they are in the same realm, their strength is very different. This is a huge advantage brought by nature, and it is difficult to make up for it with acquired efforts. Certainly, it's not that it's impossible to make up for it, it's just difficult. Taking a step back, even if Tang Yaoyao is really no match for them, Jiang Han still has the biggest trump card. If he is cornered, the worst he can do is release the corpse demon and massacre the sword world. Soon, Jiang Han came to the seventh peak and saw a figure standing in the air, bowing towards him and saying, Uncle Jiang. Lead the way. Jiang Han glanced at him lightly. Yes, the man quickly led the way. Not long after, Jiang Han was brought to the top of the seventh peak. A simple hall stood here. I don't know when it was built, but it has been there for many years. Uncle Jiang, Master ordered that only you can go in. After the disciple finished speaking, he retreated. Jiang Han raised his brows slightly, looked at the dark hall in front of him, and curled up the corner of his mouth. I want to see what tricks you can play. Say it. He took long strides and walked towards the main hall. Be careful. Nangong Wan's cautious voice sounded in her ears. Ji Yulinyan is a psychopathic person who will never give up to achieve her goals and can do anything. The life and death of other people is not important in her eyes. No. Jiang Han nodded vaguely. There was deathly silence in the main hall. He evaded steps slowly, but no figure was seen. Sudden, his steps paused. At this time, we have walked into the inner hall. There is a translucent screen standing in front of us. We can vaguely see the misty water vapor steaming, and a concave and convex figure is looming, seemingly taking a bath. Senior Sister Ji Yu, what kind of fun are you doing? Jiang Han pulled a chair next to him and sat down, crossed his legs, and said with a half-smile, Did you ask me to come to your place to admire this picture of an old woman taking a bath? The figure behind the screen suddenly froze. Call. The icy cold air overflowed. Then, Ji Yulinyan's voice with a hint of anger sounded inside. Junior brother Jiang, have you ever heard that trouble comes from your mouth? No. Jiang Han looked innocent. Why don't you, senior sister, explain something to me? You. Ji Yulinyan's breath was suffocated. The screen lowered, and a faint mist filled the air. Jiang Han quickly reached out to cover his eyes. Senior Sister Ji Yu, have you put on clothes? I hate to look at the body of a dirty old woman, otherwise I will get needle holes. Jiang Han. Ji Yu Lingyan's tone was stern and full of anger. I will not use my words with you. Hand over Nangong Wan's primordial spirit, and I promise that I will never cause any trouble to you again in the future. Who is Nangong Wan? Jiang Han removed the hand covering his eyes and raised his eyebrows. At this time, Ji Yu Lingyan was wearing a white robe. It looked like she had just finished bathing, and her hair was still wet. At first glance, it does have some mature charm. Ji Yu Lingyan, elder of the Sword Sect, 2-star martial sovereign. Although he looks cold on the outside, he actually has a wild personality and has affairs with many of his true disciples. Refuse her request and you'll get a reward. Nangong Wan's secret. Closing square bracket. Interesting. The corners of Jiang Han's mouth curled up in a subtle way. When I met Ji Yu Lingyan for the first time, the information I found out was that if I kill Ji Yu Lingyan, the reward will be Nangong Wan's secret. But this time, many of the requirements have been significantly lowered. Thinking about it carefully, he doesn't need Nangong Wan now, but Nangong Wan needs him. Different positioning means different values. Don't pretend to be confused with me. Ji Yu Lingyan stared at him coldly. Nangong Wan almost caused me to die, but in the end, I was robbed, my body was broken, and only the primordial spirit escaped. Junior brother Jiang, do you really want to protect such a waste? Jiang Han laughed. If he hadn't been able to see Ji Yu Lingyan's information, he might have become suspicious of Nangong Wan. Why are you laughing? Ji Yu Lingyan narrowed her eyes. Jiang Han's smile faded. He extended a thumb and said with admiration. My senior sister Xiaozhang has excellent acting skills. It would be a pity not to become an actor. I can distort the truth with such a normal expression and my eyes don't look fake. Most people really can't do it. Do you think I'm lying? Ji Yu Lingyan sneered. Right. Jiang Han looked at her with a half smile. I can believe a person who made all the brothers feel extremely sad after her death and wanted to avenge her. However, I will never believe a broken shoe who made peace with many disciples. You. Ji Yu Lingyan's face suddenly turned pale. She took 2 steps back and looked at him with horror. Want to know how I know? Jiang Han put his chin on one hand and looked thoughtful. I said I can tell fortunes, do you believe me? What do you want? Ji Yu Lingyan said with a trembling voice. She stared at Jiang Han intently. Although she deliberately tried to calm down, there was still a hint of panic in her eyes that could not be concealed. Senior sister Ji Yu is joking. Jiang Han said calmly, I'm just a little martial soul, what can I do to you? Senior sister, don't stare at me like that. I'm not afraid of being scared. If I'm scared, I won't speak in words. Quote. Ji Yu Lingyan still stared at him fiercely. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of some period, her face calmed down, and a faint sneer appeared at the corner of her mouth. Junior brother Jiang, if you say something, others will believe it. You first killed one of my female disciples at the 9th peak, and then killed 2 of my true disciples at the Emperor's tomb. Your infamy has already spread throughout the entire sect. Tell me, do they believe what you say or not? What I said. Jiang Han nodded slightly. Ji Yu Lingyan was a smart man after all, he found the loophole so quickly. As she said, Jiang Han had already killed 3 disciples from the 7th peak. Although they were at fault, the problem was that the other disciples did not know the truth of the matter. Plus, the disciples were not very satisfied with Jiang Han becoming the peak master, so they would naturally be biased when considering things. Jiang Han, I still say the same thing. Ji Yu Lingyan sneered. Hand over that Nangong Wan, and I will have nothing to do with you from now on, and I will never cause you any trouble. Don't expect that Miss Yi will really go against the sword sect for you. All she wants is the Wugo sword body. As long as she gets it, everything will be easy. And your qualifications are very important to her. Not worth a penny. Otherwise, what do you think she wants to do specifically to become your teacher? Do you really want you to teach her how to practice? Ridiculous. Jiang Han, I don't want to let things get too big and affect the practice of the seniors in the sword world, so I invite you to come today. Don't make a toast or eat as a penalty. Ji Yu Lingyan's voice became colder and colder, and a fierce murderous aura surrounded the hall. Finished. Jiang Han raised his eyelids casually and said calmly, Senior Sister Ji Yu, have you ever heard of a very interesting strange stone called a voice stone? Sound stone. Ji Yu Lingyan looked surprised and uncertain. Although she had never heard of it, she knew its function just by hearing the name. Have to say, Jiang Han took out a small square stone with a smile. The world is so big, there are all kinds of wonders. Senior Sister Ji Yu, how do you think there is such a wonderful gadget that can save what people say? No, it's impossible. Ji Yu Lingyan finally became completely panicked. I have never heard of such a thing, you are lying to me. Yeah, Jiang Han flicked his fingers, and a trace of spiritual power penetrated into the stone. Next moment, the previous conversations resounded throughout the hall. Hand over Marong Wan's primordial spirit, and I promise that I will never cause trouble to you again in the future. Quote. I can trust a person who made all the brothers feel extremely sad after her death and want to avenge her. However, I will never trust a broken shoe who made peace with his disciples. You. Quote. Junior brother Jiang, if you say something, others will believe it. Quote. Hand over that Marong Wan, and you and I will have nothing to do with each other from now on. Don't expect that Miss Yi from Zhongzhou too. Sounds continued to sound. Ji Yu Lingyan's face became increasingly pale. Sudden, she swayed slightly and appeared in front of Jiang Han in an instant, reaching out to grab the sound stone. But Jiang Han seemed to be unable to react quickly and was snatched away directly. Crack! The voice stone was crushed to pieces by Ji Yu Lingyan. She breathed a sigh of relief and sneered again and again. Junior brother Jiang, it seems that you still haven't figured out the difference between Wuhan and martial sovereign. Thank you for taking it out specially. I listen. Sister Ji Yu, you're welcome. Jiang Han leisurely took out a voice stone again and said leisurely, you're welcome. You. Ji Yu Lingyan's eyes suddenly solidified. To be honest, a voice stone like this. Jiang Han waved his hand casually, and a faint brilliance flashed across the ground, and dozens of stones emerged. Call out. He flicked his fingers, and the spiritual power was absorbed into the dozens of sound stones, and the same voice as before sounded at the same time, but this time there was an extra bit of Ji Yu Lingyan's last words at the end. Jiang Han looked at her with a half smile but said, I still have a few hundred more. Could it be that Senior Sister Ji Yu likes them? Why don't I give you a few for fun? Ji Yu Lingyan's face turned completely pale, like a piece of white paper. Jiang, Junior brother Jiang. Her voice trembled, and she looked at him pleadingly, if you have something to say. If you have something to say, please say it. No matter what you ask for, I am willing to agree. I can be a slave, a servant, I can be a cow or a horse. I wouldn't dare have a servant like you. There was a hint of disdain and ridicule in the corner of Jiang Han's mouth. Senior Sister Ji Yu, a villain like you might one day set a trap for me and make me die inexplicably. Thump. Ji Yu Lingyan knelt on the ground with hazy eyes and a pitiful look. Junior brother Jiang, I know I was wrong. It was my villainous heart that caused Junior Sister Nangong's body to be destroyed. I am willing to atone for her. Oh, what kind of atonement? Jiang Han chuckled. Ji Yu Lingyan knelt and took 2 steps, and after approaching Jiang Han, a cold light suddenly flashed in her lowered eyes, and she suddenly raised her head with murderous intent. Of course I will send you 2 back to the west together, and let you be a pair of dead mandarin ducks. Quote. Careful. Nangong Wan's exclamation sounded in her ears. Kai. Ji Yu Lingyan's forehead shone brightly, dazzling, and vaguely, a sword-wielding figure shimmering with divine brilliance burst out from the center of her eyebrows, killing Jiang Han at a terrifying speed like lightning. However, the next second, the dazzling little man was frozen in the air, only a millimeter away from Jiang Han's eyebrows. Ji Yu Lingyan's ferocious expression became stiff. She slowly turned her head and looked at a hazy shadow beside her. Her voice was hard. Martial Venerable. You actually protected him. Isn't he just a little martial soul? What is there worth protecting? What promise did he give you? I can give you more. My father it is also martial venerable, and my grandfather is a semi-saint. Semi-saint. Tang Yaoyao spoke indifferently. The gap between you and me is not that big. What can you give me? Then, what can Jiang Han give you? Big beads of sweat appeared on Ji Yu Lingyan's forehead. Under the pressure released by the 10,000-year tree demon Tang Yaoyao, she couldn't even move her fingers and could only make a sound with difficulty. This was the huge gap between martial venerable and martial sovereign. It was insurmountable. Tang Yaoyao's eyes were misty and she said calmly, "What he can give me is the future." Sister Yaoyao's words are disturbing to me. Jiang Han stood up calmly and looked at the brilliant sword-wielding figure in front of him with interest. "Senior Sister Ji Yu, this combat skill seems interesting. What is it called?" "It seems that it is similar to the secret technique, flying immortal technique, left by Xiaoyao Martial Emperor." "I'm telling you, can you not kill me?" There was a hint of hope in Ji Yu Lingyan's eyes. "Can." Jiang Han nodded. "You swore poison." Ji Yu Lingyan stared at him. Jiang Han frowned and his tone became indifferent. "Believe it or not, it's your business. I'm just slightly interested in that combat skill, but I don't have to do it." Ji Yu Lingyan gritted her teeth and said cruelly, "Okay, I'll tell you. This combat skill, called sword throw, is a middle-level primordial spirit combat skill. People who are not as good at primordial spirit as you, or who are unprepared, can instantly kill the opponent's primordial spirit. The disadvantage is that it will be temporarily trapped. Period of weakness." "Interesting," Jiang Han said enthusiastically. "Where is it originally? Take it and show it to me." "Inside my storage ring." Ji Yu Lingyan's eyes flickered slightly. "Senior Marshal Venerable, please help me unlock my imprisonment first. Anyway, with you here, I will definitely not be able to escape." "Need not." Tang Yaoyao stretched out her hand with an expressionless expression. The ring on Ji Yu Lingyan's hand immediately fell off her finger, and then a green stream of light penetrated, instantly destroying the spiritual mark Ji Yu Lingyan had imprinted on it. Puff! Ji Yu Lingyan shuddered and spit out a large mouthful of blood. Her face became even paler, and there was a hint of resentment in her eyes. Subsequently, a thin ancient book flew out of the ring and landed in Jiang Han's hand. "Throw the sword alone, an earth-grade middle-level primordial spirit combat skill that can instantly kill creatures that are unprepared or whose primordial spirit is not as good as yours, and will fall into a short period of weakness. Soak it in the 9 nether mysterious water, and then forge it with the 9 yang true fire, and you will get the reward, the supreme primordial spirit secret technique, kill with the sword." Closing square bracket. Another supreme secret. Jiang Han's pupils shrank slightly, and his heart was shaken. He had an inexplicable feeling that opportunities were everywhere in this world, but most people couldn't detect the existence of opportunities. From the Black Ice Buddha Lotus and the powerful Bull Demon Fist at the beginning, to the Kunpeng Cub later, and now to this, lonely sword throw. That's exactly what he said. A 1,000-mile horse often exists, but a bull does not always exist. Just like this unique middle-level primordial spirit combat skill, sword throw, if it is not discovered, it is a relatively powerful middle-level primordial spirit combat skill. However, when encountering Jiang Han, it is completely different. However, I'm afraid it's hard to get the 9 yin xuanshui and 9 yang true fire. Jiang Han said to himself. Not to mention getting it, he had never even heard of it, and if he wanted to unlock the supreme secret technique, killing with sword, he needed to use both of them at once. Etc. Jiang Han's heart suddenly moved. Could it be that 9 yang true fire has something to do with the golden crow? If this is the case, then the fragments of Chaos Bell are worth watching for a while. Thinking in his mind, Jiang Han carefully put the lone sword throw into the ring, and then his eyes slowly fell on Ji Yu Lingyan, whose face was full of anxiety. Jiang Han, you just said you wouldn't kill me. Ji Yu Lingyan's heart tightened. Rest assured. Jiang Han's lips curled up. I keep my word, I won't kill you now. It would be too cheap to let you die like this. Say it. He turned into a sword light and disappeared into the hall, followed closely by the 10,000-year-old tree demon Tang Yaoyao. The terrifying pressure dissipated. Ji Yu Lingyan collapsed to the ground, her expression changing. Just let her go. Nandong Wan's slightly complicated voice sounded in her ears. Of course not. Jiang Han landed on the 9th peak and chuckled. Originally, it was really a feud between you and her. However, she sent her disciples to kill me one after another, and she has already formed a big feud with me. How could she let her go so easily? Nandong Wan said doubtfully. Then are you preparing? In the matter of killing her, we must first uphold justice. Jiang Han said lightly, I live very comfortably in the 9th peak. Unless I have to, I don't want to leave the sword sect at the moment. It's not that he values Sword Sect very much, but he values the 10 peaks of Sword Sect transformed by the immortal executing sword. Yi, Jiang Han called. Brother, what's wrong? Hearing this, Jiang Yi let go of the young coon, who had turned into a small rock. It immediately felt like it was being amnesty, and quickly flapped its wings and flew to the branches of the world tree. Jiang Han took out 8 phonological stones and said with a smile, "Go and take these 8 voice stones to the sect master and the peak masters of all other peaks except the 7th peak." Good. Jiang Yi reached out and took it, turning it into swordlight and disappearing on the 9th peak. Seeing her leaving, Jiang Han said calmly, "Nangong Wan, can I tell you something? Ji Yu Lingyan is so eager to get your primordial spirit, shouldn't it be just because of deep hatred?" Nangong Wan remained silent. A long time. She just sighed softly and said, "Yes, she wanted to find me, not that she wanted to drive me out of my mind. Back then, I traveled with her and accidentally entered a very scary place." Speaking of which, Murong Wan was silent again. After a few seconds, her voice sounded again, with a hint of fear, which showed how deep a shadow it had left on him. "We saw a cemetery." Cemetery. Jiang Han raised his eyebrows. Good. Nangong Wan's tone was extremely solemn, and her fear was palpable. There was gray mist floating everywhere in that cemetery. When we walked inside, we always felt like something was staring at us viciously from behind. But when I looked back, there was nothing. Every earthen tomb is covered with broken weapons, including swords, spears and halberds, and some have tattered and rotten armor covering them, but without exception, everything is broken. The tombstones are like a forest of tombstones, but there is no name written on them, or in other words, we can't see the writing on them. Maybe there is, maybe there is not. In the center of the forest of steles, there is a huge tomb. We walked for a long time without ever going out. There were graves and fog everywhere, and our spirits almost collapsed due to torture. At last, we had to bite the bullet and walked into a passage in the largest tomb. It's better to say it's a passage than a thief's cave. There was a hint of weirdness in Murong Wan's tone. Burning hole. Jiang Han frowned slightly. Yes, it's a robbery hole. Murong Wan said slowly, "By the way, the largest tomb is the only one with words on the tombstone, but it is incomplete. Only 3 intermittent words can be seen vaguely. Tomb of Heaven." The Tomb of Heaven. Jiang Han thought for a while and asked, "Are they 3 words connected together, or are there other words in between?" "There are other words between them," Nangong Wan said without thinking. "The other handwriting has been blurred. Only these 3 words can barely be seen clearly. I don't know how many years have passed." Jiang Han fell into deep thought. This is difficult to guess. After all, the 3 words, Tomb of Heaven, can be added intermittently with various words in between. For example, Tomb of Heavenly Emperor, Tomb of Heavenly Tao, Tomb of Heaven, etc. And the word Tian may also be part of someone's name. In short, there are many possibilities. Shaking his head slightly, 027, Jiang Han didn't think much about this aspect but instead asked, "Why do you think that hole is a robbery hole?" "I couldn't be sure." Nangong Wan's tone was full of determination, and she said in a deep voice, "However, after entering the cave entrance, I found traces of someone passing by, and some of the mechanisms have obviously been destroyed." Jiang Han nodded clearly. "You continue." There was a moment of silence. Nangong Wan whispered again, "Because the restrictions on the road have long been destroyed, we continued along the robber's cave without encountering any danger, and walked into the deepest part of the tomb. Then, we found a lifelike corpse sitting cross-legged. We don't know how powerful he was during his lifetime. Just the residual power emanating from the corpse kept us from getting close. There are several bodies there. I guess those are the corpses of tomb robbers. They still keep moving towards the tomb owner, but they remain still in place forever, as if the primordial spirit was wiped out in an instant. We carefully pulled the bodies of the tomb robbers back with ropes and got some of their belongings. As for most of the things in the tomb, we dare not and cannot move most of them. But in order to escape from that dangerous place, we had no choice but to try to get closer to the tomb owner little by little. Then, something very strange happened. We are safe." Nangong Wan's voice was full of doubts. It was obvious that to this day, she was still puzzled by her experience at that time, and she didn't know why she was safe and sound. "How did you get out?" Jiang Han was more concerned about this issue. Nangong Wan said. As I got closer to the owner of the tomb, I tried to touch a broken stone tablet next to his body. Then, we suddenly left the tomb and went outside, without the tablet and the fog. Therefore, we doubt that the broken stone tablet is related to whether we can enter the fog again. Then what? Jiang Han frowned slowly. Why did Ji Yulingyan want to kill you? Because of that ruined monument. There was a hint of hatred in Nangong Wan's voice. The broken stele next to the tomb owner followed me out of the big tomb. I didn't intend to take it all for myself, but I didn't expect that Ji Yulingyan wanted to kill people and seize the treasure so that he could be protected secretly. Her martial sovereign killed me. Fortunately, there was that weird ruined monument. My primordial spirit was protected by it, and I barely escaped with my life. Hearing this, Jiang Han finally understood. To put it bluntly, Ji Yulingyan saw the broken stone tablet and did not want to share it with Nangong Wan, so she asked martial sovereign, who was secretly protecting her, to attack and kill Nangong Wan on the road, preparing to take it for himself. However, what Ji Yulingyan never expected was that the broken stone tablet actually protected Nangong Wan's primordial spirit, which caused her to lose both her life and wealth. No wonder she cares so much about Nangong Wan. Jiang Han was originally curious as to why she would rather risk offending Zhongzhouyi Qingluan and force herself to hand over Nangong Wan. It turned out that the root cause was here. From beginning to end, Ji Yulingyan didn't care whether Nangong Wan would expose her. All she cares about is the ruined monument. Where's the stone tablet? A strange color flashed in Jiang Han's eyes. Here I am. Nangong Wan sighed softly and said quietly, I am alive now only because you refused Ji Yulingyan. This broken monument is of no use to me now, so I will give it to you. While talking, the light blue jade pendant held in Jiang Han's hand suddenly flashed with a hazy light, and a broken monument suddenly fell down, shaking the ground slightly. It seemed to be extremely heavy. Is this the stone tablet? Jiang Han looked at it with interest. This remnant monument is not very big. It looks like it may only be half of its original shape. It has a sense of vicissitudes of life and is stained with drops of black blood. It seems that it has not dried up and is always flowing. It is heart-stopping. Hey, are there words on it? Jiang Han looked at the vague writing on the remaining stele in surprise. Part of the writing was smeared with black blood, so it was hard to see clearly, but it was still vaguely possible to tell that it was the word, Jiao, and the word, stele. Teaching monument. Jiang Han's eyes looked thoughtful. This broken stele seems to be the lower part of the complete stele, so there should be other words in front of the word, teaching stele. The tomb of heaven. The religious monument. Jiang Han muttered in a low voice. He vaguely had some thoughts, but he still lacked a little bit of inspiration and couldn't grasp. Guess what? Jiang Han suddenly reacted and slapped his forehead suddenly. Naturally, he couldn't see the tombstone with the words, Tomb of Heaven, written on it. He couldn't use the report system to check it. Since the birth of this broken monument was in front of him, what was Fei Zhang thinking about? Think of this. Jiang Han simply said in his heart, if I get this broken monument, what use can it be? Under detection. Testing completed. Jia Jiao Monument. Damaged. The ancient and powerful religious monument has the ability to suppress luck. If you get the broken tablet and carry it with you, you can get rewards at specific locations. The qualification to enter the tomb of Yinggu Tianeng. Closing square bracket dot. Jia Jiao Monument. Jiang Han's mind was shocked. He immediately understood what the Tomb of Heaven, written on the tombstone of the big tomb meant. Its complete version should be Tomb of Babel. In other words, the tomb of Lord Tongtian. That large forest of steles shrouded in mist was simply his burial place. This moment, Jiang Han finally determined that this world may really have a certain connection with the mythical legend on Earth. The broken immortal executing sword, the fragments of the Eastern Emperor's bell, the Tomb of Babel. Everything proved his guess. Jiang Han shuddered a little. At the same time, a glimmer of enlightenment arose in his heart, and he probably guessed the reason why Nangong Wan and Ji Yulingyan were able to get close to the body of the Tongtian cult leader without dying. First of all, they are disciples of the Sword Sect. The 10 peaks of Sword Sect were transformed from Tongtian's immortal executing sword. Over time, naturally, it will also be tainted with a hint of breath. Therefore, even though the leader of Tongtian is dead, he was extremely powerful when he was alive. His corpse has a spirit. He may have regarded Nangong Wan and Ji Yulinyan as the younger disciples of Jia Zhao, so he did not kill them. That way, if I go to the tomb, it should be safer. Jiang Han said to himself. Although he has not been in the sword sect for a long time, he has even observed the immortal executing sword and it has become his own martial spirit, so the aura will naturally bring him closer to the body of Master Tongtian. Let's go there if we have time. After pondering for a while, Jiang Han said slowly, Nangong Wan, you will lead the way. As for your problem of wanting to reshape your body, I will help you. Good. Nangong Wan agreed straightforwardly, but the premise is that you can live until that time. You don't think so highly of me. Jiang Han laughed. It's not that I don't like you. Nangong Wan's tone was full of helplessness. Jiang Han, many times, in the face of absolute force, conspiracy and tricks are useless. Although you can ruin Ji Yulinyan's reputation, her elders are not easy to mess with. Although you have that senior Yao Ji, behind Ji Yulinyan, there are at least 3 martial venerables. As for Miss Yi from Zhongzhou, Nangong Wan smiled bitterly. Obviously, everyone thinks that Yi Qingluan has other motives for worshipping Jiang Han as his disciple. Maybe the purpose is the Wugo sword body, maybe the purpose is the secret of the 9th peak. But definitely not Jiang Han. Because no normal person would think that a proud girl from Zhongzhou would sincerely worship a little martial soul as her teacher. This is a matter of common sense. Yes. After hearing this, Jiang Han nodded in agreement and chuckled. In the face of absolute force, all conspiracies and tricks are nothing. Nothing wrong. In front of a martial emperor's corpse, even the martial saint is just a floating cloud, not worth mentioning. Jiang Han had already prepared for the worst. I just want to take this rare opportunity to see if certain people are sincere or fake. He murmured softly, his eyes as deep as a valley, with an unexplainable meaning. Heavenly Sword Mountain, Main Hall. Yi, why are you free to come to me today? Li Mubai stroked his long beard, looked at the handsome Jiang Yi lovingly, and said jokingly, since you came to the sword sect, you have either stayed at the sword tomb or accompanied your brother. It is rare to think of your master. Quote, Master, look at what you said. Jiang Yi blinked, disciple, isn't this just to practice well? Okay. Li Mubai shook his head helplessly and laughed. Tell me, you don't go to the 3 treasures hall for nothing, and you came to see master today. Do you have any orders? How can my disciple dare to give you orders? Jiang Yi took out a voice stone with a smile. Brother asked my disciple to give this to you. Oh, Li Mubai showed a hint of surprise. What is this? Have no idea. Jiang Yi shook her head honestly. Brother only asked me to bring it to you. I still have something to do, so I have to leave first. Pay my respects to master. Go ahead. Li Mubai watched her leave with a smile, and sighed in his heart. This girl really has no sense of belonging to the sword sect, but this is good or bad. He sighed quietly and his eyes fell on the sound stone in his hand. The stone was square and looked like it was made artificially, and such a thing usually required spiritual power to be activated and used. Thinking in his mind, Li Mubai poured a trace of spiritual power into it. Next moment, a familiar and cold female voice came from the stone. Hand over that primordial spirit of Murong Wan, and I promise that I will never cause trouble to you again in the future. Li Mubai was startled. Is this junior sister Gu's voice? Subsequently, Jiang Han's voice sounded, obviously talking to Ji Yulinyan. As he listened, Li Mubai's face gradually darkened, and a fierce murderous intention filled the air. The sharp sword light exploded in his eyes, burning and glaring, like the blazing sun. Ji Yu, Ling, Yan. His voice sounded like it was coming from the 9 nether hell, and it was bone-chilling. Li Mubai never imagined that the person who killed his junior sister Nangong Wan would be Ji Yulinyan, who had been inseparable from her. It was ridiculous that everyone thought the 2 of them were good sisters. So much so that no one has doubted Ji Yulinyan for many years. Certainly, one of the very important reasons for this is that Ji Yulinyan logically has no motive to kill Nangong Wan. Take a deep breath. Li Mubai forced himself to calm down. He lowered his eyes and pondered for a while, then suddenly stretched out his hand, and an ancient long sword flew out from the depths of the hall and fell into his hand. Old friend. Li Mubai gently rubbed the hilt of the sword. It's been decades, are you still as sharp as ever? The sword trembled, as if in response. Yes, it has been silent for so long that my sword heart is almost covered in dust. Junior sister Nangong, if the voice in this stone is not fake, senior brother, I will definitely seek justice for you. Li Mubai held a long sword in his hand, which suddenly turned into a sword light and appeared on the 9th peak. Sect Master, you came just in time. Jiang Han sat leisurely on the stone bench, with a stone table in front of him and a wine pot and wine glasses placed on it. Seeing Li Mubai's figure, he raised his wine glass, showed a faint smile, and said, "Come, have a taste of the 10,000-year-old wine I brought back from the emperor's tomb. By the way, wait a little longer to see if there is anyone else." Li Mubai's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at Yi Qingluan, who was standing next to Jiang Han, holding a wine bottle like a maid, and his eyes twitched. After a moment of silence, he spoke. "Jiang Han, I came to you because I know." Jiang Han chuckled and interrupted him, "Sect Master, please sit down first. Qingluan, fill up the wine for Sect Master." "Yes, Master." Yi Qingluan nodded gently. Her bright eyes moved, and she looked sideways at Li Mubai, then stretched out her white and tender hands as an invitation. "Sect Master, please sit down, don't embarrass this disciple." Li Mubai sat down helplessly. He can offend Ji Yu Lingyan's backers in order to avenge Nangong Wan, but he must not displease Yi Qingluan over such a trivial matter. The consequences caused by the two are completely different. But the scene before him slightly changed his original thoughts. No matter how you look at it, Yi Qingluan's words and deeds reveal her respect for Han, and it doesn't look like she's just playing for the occasion. Could it be that she really worships Jiang Han as her teacher? But Li Mubai still couldn't figure it out. No matter how outstanding Jiang Han is, he won't be so valued by a legitimate daughter of a large Zhongzhou family, right? "Sect Master, please." Jiang Han raised his drink. Li Mubai picked up the wine glass, sniffed it gently, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he praised. "Good wine. Of course it's a good wine." Jiang Han took a sip and said slightly drunkenly, "This wine is originally the collection of the martial emperor, and it has been placed in the emperor's tomb for thousands of years. The longer it gets, the mellower it becomes. If an ordinary person takes a sip, he will fall asleep directly, past. Even practitioners like us can't drink too much, we can only taste it in small doses." "Yes." Li Mubai slowly put down the wine glass and said quietly, "Everything in the world is like wine, which becomes mellower as time goes by. However, people's hearts are unpredictable, and true love and falsehood are often just in a thought." "It makes sense." Jiang Han half squinted his eyes and glanced at the sword that Li Mubai was holding tightly. "It seems that the sect master is also a man of temperament." "Why?" Li Mubai let out a long sigh, and the look of memories showed in his vicissitudes of life. "Junior sister Nangong, I watched her grow up. She has been a disciple of the sword sect since she was a child, and she has the same master as me. Although I am usually very strict with her, I actually regard her as my own sister." Quote, "I have been investigating the real cause of her death for decades, but I still have no clue, until today, when I received this stone that you asked Yi to send." Said. He took out the gramophone stone, stared at Jiang Han, and said with stern eyes, "Jiang Han, I just need you to give me a definite answer. Is the sound in it true or false?" "You shouldn't ask me if it's true or not." Jiang Han chuckled. "Who should I ask?" Li Mubai stared at him, with a hint of unconcealable excitement in his eyes, and his voice was trembling. "Junior sister Nangong's primordial spirit, is it really with you?" At this moment, the sky suddenly became gloomy, dark clouds rolled in, and dazzling lightning seemed to split a big hole in the sky. Ji Yu, Ling, Yan, a huge, thunder-like angry roar exploded. "Get out of here." Stab. The lightning fills the sky. Like the wrath of the 9 heavens thunder god, the end is coming. The entire sword sect was shrouded in the terrifying brilliance of heavenly power, and countless disciples from all peaks raised their heads in horror, looking at the figure bathed in thunder and lightning in the sky. "That seems to be Uncle Lei. What does it seem like, in our sword sect, besides Master Uncle Lei, who else has such a level of Thunder Dao cultivation? I thought I heard him calling Master Gu's name just now. Is this what martial sovereign looks like when he's angry?" The disciples were talking a lot. Although they have been practicing in the sword sect, they have never seen the power of a strong man at the martial sovereign level. At this moment, the 8th peak master, nicknamed Thunder Sword, showed the terrifying power of the martial sovereign. Just like Thor. Lei Qianqi, why are you so crazy? A cold female voice came out from the seventh peak. Ji Yu Lingyan, don't act stupid with me. A roar like muffled thunder resounded in the void again, and the thunder and lightning in the sky became more and more terrifying, almost turning into a sea of thunder. If you don't come out, I will level the entire seventh peak. Cough. A gentle cough suddenly sounded, suppressing Lei Qianqi's roar and thunder. Then, a voice was heard saying calmly, Qian Kai, how can you behave like a yeller and let the disciples laugh at you? Come down, if you have anything to say, please say it carefully. In the sky, Lei Qianqi's expression suddenly froze. Master, why, you don't recognize me? The faint voice still had no ups and downs, and said calmly, or are you saying that your wings have grown hard and you are not ready to recognize me as your master? But master, Lei Qianqi stood in the air and said loudly, Ji Yu Lingyan. Get off. The plain voice suddenly became cold and stern. I asked you to curb your bad temper back then, but you haven't changed it at all over the years. Just because of a few villainous words of malicious frame-up and instigation, do you suspect a senior sister you have known for many years? Wang Jiao Jiao. Malicious framing and provocation. There was a trace of confusion in Lei Qianqi's tiger eyes. He subconsciously looked in the direction of the ninth peak, obviously a little shaken, and for a moment he didn't know which one to believe. The ninth peak. The corners of Jiang Han's mouth were slightly raised, and he was playing with the wine glass with a half-smile. Ji Yu Lingyan's movements were really fast. She went to the sword world to invite her elders without stopping, and she also used the dignity of her elders to bite back and distort the facts, which was considered smart. Whether it's a frame-up or the truth, you can't decide with just one word. At this time, Li Mubai suddenly spoke. He was holding the wine glass, his body motionless, but his indifferent voice spread throughout the entire sword sect. Uncle Ji Yu Master, I haven't fully investigated the ins and outs of the matter, so I'm afraid it's not good to draw conclusions so quickly, right? There was silence between heaven and earth. Li Mubai's voice resounded in everyone's ears. Almost all the disciples of the sword sect smelled something unusual. If only Lei Qianqi and Ji Yu Lingyan were fighting, it might be understood as a personal conflict involving the previous generation. However, now that even the sect leader is involved, the matter is extraordinary. In the minds of all the disciples, Li Mubai is undoubtedly a good sect leader with extremely outstanding character. He has no airs. Occasionally when he meets a disciple on the road to salute, he will smile and nod. But other elders often don't even look at it. The master's nephew. After a while, the faint voice sounded again, we haven't seen each other for many years, and my cultivation and temper have improved a lot. Well, since you all have your own opinions, why don't you sit down and talk about it and explain it clearly? I think so too. Ri sat upright and said coldly, Uncle Ji Yu Master, please come to the ninth peak one. The words just fell. 2 sword lights exploded from the seventh peak, and the next moment they appeared on the top of the ninth peak. The sword lights lingered endlessly, and then turned into 2 figures. One was Ji Yu Lingyan, and the other it was an old man with a clear face. At first glance, this old man seems to have an air of immortality and an air of superiority. But if you observe carefully, you will find that there is a trace of lingering anger between his eyebrows, which is obviously not a good person. Next moment, a flash of lightning flashed, and Lei Qianqi also appeared on the top of the mountain, frowning and saying nothing. Are you Jiang Han? The old man glanced at Jiang Han indifferently. It turns out he is a little guy in the martial spirit realm. The master's nephew. As far as I know, there is no peak leader of the ninth peak in the past who is lower than the martial king, right? Uncle Master Ji Yu is questioning our sect. Li Mubai said expressionlessly, the peak master of the ninth peak has never been stipulated to be martial king or above. Since ancient times, it has been appointed by the sect leader. Uncle Ji Yu, I respect you as the supreme elder, but among the sect leaders it's no longer your turn to ask questions. The old man narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, he laughed softly, full of emotion. The younger generation is to be feared, the younger generation is to be feared. Back then, when you met me, you were like a mouse meeting a cat. You were respectful and respectful. But now you are so bold and you are breaking the sect's rules. Hey, I'm old, I'm old. Uncle Ji Yu Master, listen to this first. Li Mubai pretended not to hear and threw the voice stone that Yi had given him. Snapped. A sword light flashed in the old man's eyes, smashing the sound stone into pieces, and said calmly, I have heard that there are ordinary people in the secular world who are proficient in ventriloquism and can imitate the sounds of all things. What's more, as practitioners, it is very easy to fake sounds. How can we take this kind of thing seriously? Lingyan, have you said these words? No. Ji Lingyan was naturally in denial. She stared at Jiang Han with cold eyes and said bitterly, Uncle, this man first killed one of my disciples on the 9th peak, and then killed 2 of my true disciples in the emperor's tomb, and now he slanders me like this. From the beginning to the end, I have never offended him. Sect Master's nephew, what Ling Yan said is correct, right? You don't have to deny it. I can tell the truth by asking 10 disciples at random. The old man sneered slightly. Li Mubai frowned. There is really no way to explain this matter. Although Jiang Han said that Ji Lingyan's disciples attacked and killed him first, there is no evidence after all. At this time, Jiang Han slowly said, Old dog. What did you say? The old man narrowed his eyes. Chegg, oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally said what was on my mind. Jiang Han apologized quickly, his face full of sincerity. Forgive me, I am a rude person, but what I said is big truth. You have no respect for your superiors. The old man was furious, and an extremely terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body. His white hair was flying in the wind. Bass. A clear sword sound sounded. Li Mubai stood still, the ancient sword lying across his knees trembled slightly, cutting off the old man's breath. The old man's eyes narrowed. He stared at Li Mubai deeply and slowly calmed down. The master's nephew is indeed the most outstanding genius of your generation, and his cultivation has progressed quite quickly. Uncle Master, thank you. Li Mubai had an expressionless face and said without squinting, Uncle Master believes that the voice in the voice stone is artificial, so why do you believe what Ji Lingbo said? The old man smiled half-smilingly and said, So, the master's nephew would rather trust someone who has just started for a few months than Ling Yan, who has been a brother and sister with you for decades. No, Li Mubai looked at him calmly, without flinching at all, I just want to know the truth. At this time, Lei Qianqi, who was standing quietly next to him, suddenly said, Jiang Han, if you firmly believe that the voice in the voice stone is real, then it means that you have seen junior sister Nangong's primordial spirit. The sword command when you joined the sect was given to you by her, right? He is not actually a stupid person. It's just that he has an irritable personality, and he practices thunder skills, so he becomes extremely irritable. However, he and Nangong Wan joined the sword sect in the same year and had a very good relationship, so he was furious and rushed to the 7th peak. Question Ji Lingyan. Good. Under everyone's gaze, Jiang Han chuckled and nodded. Then where is she now? Lei Qianqi's tiger eyes flashed with purple lightning, staring at him with a hint of excitement. There was silence for a moment. Jiang Han took out the light blue jade pendant and slowly placed it on the table. He glanced at the guilty Ji Lingyan with a smile but not a smile, it's right here. Senior sister Ji, do you want to confront her? Let's see who is telling the truth. Junior sister Nangong is here. Li Mubai's eyes trembled, staring at the light blue jade pendant. The ancient swords on his knees made a clear sword sound, as if he felt the owner's agitated mood and became active. Buzz. Ripples appeared in the void, just like a small stone dropped into a lake, causing misty water waves. A vague figure floated out from the light blue jade pendant. Although she was too weak to see her true face, everyone on the side recognized her instantly. Junior sister Nangong. Li Mubai and Lei Qianqi were both extremely excited. Nangong Wan. The corners of Ji Lingyan's mouth twitched fiercely, and a cold look flashed across her lowered eyes. Senior brother Li, senior brother Lei. Nangong Wan's soft voice sounded, with complicated emotions, I have worked hard on my 2 senior brothers for so many years. Subsequently, she turned her head slightly, looked at Ji Lingyan standing opposite, and said calmly, Senior sister Ji, long time no see. Nangong Wan, stop pretending to me. Ji Lingyan suddenly spoke harshly and stared at her with an angry face. It was as if the anger that had been suppressed for many years exploded at this moment. Back then, you secretly attacked me in order to steal the treasure we got together. If you hadn't been secretly protected by your uncle, you might have succeeded. Because of old friendship, I didn't expose you. You lied to the brothers and said you were killed by a mysterious martial sovereign. Now you still have the nerve to come back. Everything became quiet. The joy and excitement were solidified on the faces of Li Mubai and Lei Qianqi. This moment, they really can't tell which side is telling the truth. After all, they didn't see with their own eyes what happened back then. Good. The old man stroked his long beard and said calmly, I watched Ling Yan grow up and treated her as my own, so I protected her secretly when she and Nangong Wan went out to travel. Secretary of the sect master, and my good disciple, now you know why I believe what Ling Yan said. Oh, it's you. Nangong Wan's tone was calm, but there was a hint of surprise. No wonder I always feel familiar. You deliberately didn't use your unique skills back then. Were you afraid of being recognized by me? Why do I need to use my special skills to kill you? The old man sneered disdainfully. The old dog is awesome. Jiang Han, who was watching the show next to him, suddenly put his hands on his hands and said with a smile. Under Nangong Wan's sudden sneak attack, you can still consider not using your own unique skills. Shouldn't you use the strongest blow in desperation to kill Nangong Wan instantly? As soon as this statement came out, Li Mubai and Lei Qianqi, who were caught in a tangle, both had their eyes lit up. Yes, back then, Nangong Wan was stronger than Ji Yu Lingyan, so her sudden attack would definitely be fatal to Ji Yu Lingyan. However, under this situation, Ji Yu actually deliberately did not use his own unique skills, but instead used a combat skill that was not related to the sword sect's Feng Ma Niu to kill Murong Wan. Nothing makes sense. Gai Yu is the name of Uncle Ji Yu Lingyan. Upon hearing this, his expression suddenly froze. Obviously he had not considered this matter. Ji Yu Lingyan's eyes also flashed with a hint of panic. Once it is confirmed that she and Ji Yu conspired to kill Nangong Wan, then Jian Zong will never tolerate her again. Although her elders are not weak in strength, Jian Zong does not have the surname, Ji Yu. In the sword world, there are also some old guys who cannot deal with the Ji Yu family. Little one, you have insulted me over and over again. You are such a disrespectful person. The sword sect cannot keep you. At this moment, Gai Yu reached out and patted Jiang Han without any warning. His extremely sudden palm seemed to target Jiang Han, who was sitting there, but what he really wanted to kill was Nangong Wan's primordial spirit. The palm wind was as sharp as a sword and as cold as frost, covering both of them. Inside. As long as Nangong Wan is completely dead, then there is no evidence of death. You dare. Li Mubai changed color suddenly. The ancient sword between his knees was instantly unsheathed, and the bright sword light, as white as moonlight, instantly filled the top of the ninth peak, rising into the sky, and even the brilliance of the sun was briefly obscured. But, it's still a little late. The timing of Ji Yu's attack was perfect, just when Li Mubai and others were distracted. Although Li Mubai's sword is fast, he still can't catch up. No, Li Mubai's eyes were about to burst. The sword energy crisscrossed and condensed into a huge palm, slapping Jiang Han and Murong Wan's primordial spirit fiercely. As long as they touched them even slightly, they would be torn into pieces in an instant. A sneer appeared at the corner of Ji Yu Lingyan's mouth. Dead, not to mention that Nangong Wan only has the primordial spirit left. Even if he has a physical body, he is no match for Ji Yu. As for Jiang Han, it's just a martial spirit. Even Li Mubai can't save it. That martial venerable demon plant, how can we catch up? Her mood became extremely comfortable. Suddenly, Ji Yu Lingyan caught a glimpse of a beautiful figure standing quietly next to Jiang Han, also within the range of the sword palm. Her pupils shrank and she shouted with fear on her face. Uncle, no, stop it. Stop. Ji Yu's gray eyebrows slightly wrinkled, and he turned to look at her inexplicably, but the speed of the sword palm falling did not slow down at all. Don't tell me, are you feeling compassion? Boom. The palm of the sword fell. The blazing light enveloped Jiang Han, Murong Wan's primordial spirit and the beautiful figure standing there. Ji Yu Lingyan's face suddenly turned pale as a sheet. Her eyes became empty and she murmured, You killed her, you actually killed her. It's over, we are all done. What nonsense are you talking about? Ji Yu glared at her displeased ly, even if those old guys in the sword world are really looking for trouble, they are looking for me. What do you have to worry about? Yes, You killed her. Hearing this, Ji Yu Lingyan's gray eyes gradually brightened. She seemed to be speaking to Ji Yu, and seemed to be comforting herself. Uncle, it was you who killed her, and it had nothing to do with me. Gaiyu's face was full of confusion. He didn't know what was wrong with her. Ji Yu Lao dog. A shrill roar suddenly exploded on the top of the 9th peak. Li Mubai's long hair was flying, his eyes were red, and he looked like a crazy demon. The sword in his hand roared like a dragon's roar, and the sword energy was as bright as the waning moon. He slashed at Gaiyu crazily. I want your life. Ji Yu was shocked. He flew back, and at the same time the long sword on his back was unsheathed, and the cold air filled the sky. He held the sword in both hands and held it diagonally in front of him. When Li Mubai's ancient sword crashed down, sending Gaiyu and his sword flying backwards. The huge force shook the sword in his hand and almost fell out of his hand. So strong. Ji Yu looked ugly. Although he knew that Li Mubai was not weak in strength, he only thought that he was on par with him. But as soon as he made contact, he immediately discovered the gap between them. The following offense is a taboo of the sect. Gaiyu kept dodging and roaring. Li Mubai, do you want to attack the elders of the sect because you don't want to be the sect leader? Kill. Li Mubai turned a deaf ear and looked up to the natural sound. The sword energy is like a rainbow, turning into a bright beam of light, as if connecting heaven and earth. One sword can separate the world. Li Mubai, you are crazy. Ji Yu's face was livid, and he exerted all his strength. All his cultivation power exploded at this moment, and the icy cold air overflowed, causing pieces of icy snowflakes to fall around him. The next moment, the overwhelming snowflakes condensed into a giant sword of ice and snow, facing the sword energy that penetrated the heaven and earth. Boom! With a loud roar, the world suddenly turned white, and apart from the endless blazing swordsmanship, nothing else could be seen in the eyes. The sky and the earth are one color, and everything is silent. Boom! A figure flew out from the center of the explosion. It was Ji Yu. At this time, his clothes were all in tatters, and there were sword marks all over his body, especially the sword mark on his chest, which was the deepest and almost visible bones. His white hair was messy and disheveled, and there was a faint fear in his eyes that could not be concealed. Brush! Li Mubai's figure suddenly appeared in front of him, his eyes filled with murderous intent, and he slashed with his sword. Ah! Gaiyu screamed, and the arm holding the sword was cut off forcibly. He howled miserably, covered his bloody broken arm, and fled madly in the direction of Heavenly Sword Mountain. Li Mubai. He ran away and shouted angrily, are you trying to bully your master and destroy your ancestors? Deceive the master and destroy the ancestor. Li Mubai's body turned into sword rays, traveling thousands of meters in an instant. In the blink of an eye, thousands of sword rays blocked Ji Yu's body, and recondensed into human form, with murderous intent. You can also be considered a master. You is it worthy to be called ancestor? You. Fear showed on Gaiyu's face. He never expected that Li Mubai's strength would be so strong, and that there would be such a big gap in strength among those who were both 3- and 4-star martial venerables. Li Mubai, don't make a mistake. Ji Yu covered his broken arm and said with a serious expression, if you stop here, I won't argue with you. But if you insist on continuing to attack me, you will definitely not be able to keep your position as the leader of the sect. Whether you can keep it or not is not your decision. Li Mubai slashed with his sword, and the blazing sword light spread across the sky. There was a self-deprecating arc on his lips. What's more, it is still unknown whether the sword sect will continue to exist in the future. Boom! Suddenly, a figure appeared between the two of them, suppressing the billowing sword energy. The two of them were startled at the same time. Senior Jiang. Li Mubai frowned and looked at the old man in gray in front of him. Why did you stop me? His attack just now. He fell silent and did not continue. Naturally, he could clearly see the scene just now. Yi Qingluan was standing next to Jiang Han, and he was attacked by a martial venerable without warning, breaking the reason for his escape. Mainly, Li Mubai didn't expect that Ji Yu would be so heartless and daring to directly kill people and silence them. Senior, who are you? Although Gaiyu didn't know who was in front of him, he looked happy. Because it looks like she is saving him. I can't afford it. The old man in gray clothes glanced at him coldly, then turned to look at Li Mubai. My young lady is fine. Sect leader Li let's go down and talk. Miss. Yu was shocked. He recalled for a moment, and the beautiful figure standing next to Jiang Han could not help but appear in his mind, and his face suddenly turned pale. If he can easily block Li Mubai, then the old man in grey must be at the semi-saint level. He turned out to be just that woman's guard. No wonder. No wonder Ji Yulinyan said crazy things about Xie just now. She knew that the girl was untouchable, but she didn't tell him about it in advance. Dare to ask senior. Yu swallowed, still holding on to a sense of luck. The young lady you are talking about refers to. The old man in grey clothes didn't pay attention to him. With a wave of his sleeve, a violent spiritual power enveloped Yu, and he fell back to the 9th peak in an instant. Li Mubai also turned into swordlight and landed on the top of the mountain. He immediately looked at Jiang Han's position, only to see him sitting there properly, Yi Qingluan standing aside with calm eyes, and Nangong Wan's primordial spirit was still fine. It was as if nothing had happened. Metropolitan. Jiang Han chuckled and said, now, there should be no doubt about the truth of the matter, right? Kill people and silence them. Tisk, old dog, I still underestimated your ruthlessness. Qingluan, the treasure you gave to me as a teacher. Today, I have made a great contribution. Quote, it's master who has foresight. The indifference on Yi Qingluan's face melted away like ice and snow meeting the sun, and he smiled sweetly. This time, what blocked Yu's sudden attack was the 5 elements royal magic pearl that Yi Qingluan gave to Jiang Han. This thing is passive. As long as it absorbs a 5-element attribute, it will be activated instantly when it senses an attack that its owner cannot resist, blocking the attack. But Li Mubai and others obviously didn't know. It can only be said that the background of a large family is really unimaginable to ordinary people. There is no treasure like this in the entire sword sect, but Yi Qingluan simply gives it away. It is conceivable that she definitely has a high-grade self-defense law treasure. Certainly, even without the 5 elements royal dharma bead, Jiang Han was not worried. The 10,000 years dryad is not a vegetarian. Although she is also in the venerable realm world, her body is the world tree. Her strength cannot be measured by common sense. When she explodes with all her strength, she might be able to fight. Not to mention, her root system is spread all over the peak, and it is easy to resist Yu's attack. Miss. The old man in grey clothes said respectfully to Yi Qingluan, the person has been brought here, what should I do with him? Ask master, Yi Qingluan said lightly. The old man in grey clothes turned to look at Jiang Han, his face no longer showing the initial contempt. Master, what should I do with him? Do not kill me. Seeing this scene, Ji Yu's face turned completely gloomy. He said with horror on his face, Senior, I really don't want to take action against your lady. I just want to kill Jiang Han. And, she is like this, isn't it okay? Beside, Ji Yulinyan lowered her head, like a defeated rooster. She found that she seemed to be wrong. In the eyes of Miss Yi from Zhongzhou, Jiang Han did not seem to be a tool that could be used. Otherwise, if the opponent's target is really the Wugo sword body, wouldn't it be better if Jiang Han died? Yi Qingluan can justifiably take away the Wugo sword body. But this is clearly not the case. At this moment, Ji Yulinyan only hopes that the other party's attention will be all on her uncle Ji Yu and not pay too much attention to her. It is even more unforgivable to kill master. Yi Qingluan glanced at Yu with cold eyes, without any emotion in his eyes. Kill him. No, do not want. Yu's face turned pale, and he shouted in fear, you can't kill me. I am the supreme elder of the sword sect, and my father is also a semi-saint. You can't kill me. That's right, it's not me who wants to kill them, it's her. Ji Yu suddenly turned his head and pointed at Ji Yulinyan, his face full of resentment. You are a waste, you know that this young lady has an extraordinary background, why didn't you remind me? If I knew, how could I take action? Senior, it's all because of this fool. She deliberately didn't tell me the identity of this lady. Before she came, she told me that I must kill her if I had the chance. Otherwise, how could I possibly offend you? You're talking nonsense. Hearing this, Ji Yulinyan raised her head suddenly, her face turned green and white, and said in a trembling voice, I just asked you to kill Nangong Wan, but you took it upon yourself to kill Jiang Han as well. And I just told you to stop, but you didn't listen to me and stop. Dog bites dog, it's a hairy mouth. Jiang Han laughed. Master, where is Dao Dafa? Yi Qingluan spoke softly and asked for his opinion. Since the father-in-law is right and the mother-in-law is right, then. Jiang Han paused and his tone became indifferent. Kill them both. No. Veins popped out on Gaiyu's neck and he roared angrily. Boom. The extremely fiery blood spurted out from his body like a volcano. This was at the expense of burning life energy and blood, and he exploded with strength beyond his own load in a short period of time. Once this secret method is used, the lifespan will be directly reduced by hundreds of years, and the lost blood will be almost irreparable. But now, he has no other choice. Although it is unacceptable to live less than a few hundred years, at least you can still live. But if you die now, you won't even be able to see the sun tomorrow. I'll fight with you. Gaiyu's eyes were full of blood, and he rushed towards Yi Qingluan like crazy. Li Mubai frowned and was about to take action. Sudden. A hint of success flashed in Ji Yuyu's eyes. He rushed towards Yi Qingluan, turned around suddenly, and galloped in the other direction like lightning. Li Mubai was slightly startled. He thought Ji Yuyu was going to fight for his life, but unexpectedly, he was going to run for his life. The clown. The old man in gray clothes looked at his back indifferently, stretched out his right hand, pressed it weakly, and sneered, "If you fight to the death, I might still look at you favorably, but now." The void ripples. The next moment, I saw that Gaiyu's running speed suddenly slowed down, like a slow motion in a movie. Gaiyu's movements became slower and slower, as if he had been slowed down hundreds of times, and a thin long pillar of blood was pulled out behind him. It takes him more than 10 seconds to move 1 meter. But he himself didn't know it and was still running away with all his strength. The ferocious and angry expression on his face was clearly visible. Jiang Han's eyes narrowed slightly. Space combat skills. Yes, Yi Qingluan explained softly. Uncle Jiang has mastered space. This combat skill is called the void folding technique. In fact, Ji Yuyu's speed has not slowed down, but the space has been folded into many layers, so in our opinion, it's like he's slowed down. Quote, Jiang Han was thoughtful. This combat skill is somewhat extraordinary. No wonder Ji Yuyu didn't notice that in his own perception, the speed was still the same, but he was constantly passing through layers of folded space, so every meter he walked had to cover a longer distance than usual. Sharp. Jiang Han praised. The way of space is one of the most difficult laws to cultivate. Enlightenment of the law is a necessary stage for everyone who wants to break through to martial saint. There is a huge gap from martial venerable to martial saint, and you must understand a certain law. At this level, I don't know how many semi-saints are stuck. If this Uncle Jiang can break through from semi-saint to martial saint, it means that his immersion in the way of space has reached a certain level. In this way, even in the world of martial saint realm, he can definitely become a top-notch existence. Yi Qingluan's beautiful eyes flashed. She stared at Uncle Jiang's figure and shook her head slightly. In my impression, Uncle Jiang has never been able to break through to the martial saint level from beginning to end. How difficult is the way of space? Uncle Jiang was able to understand it because he had an opportunity in his early years. That opportunity came from an unknown ancient emperor, of whom Uncle Jiang only had a superficial understanding. In this regard, even though Yi Qingluan was a reborn person, he couldn't help him. She doesn't understand the way of space. Miss. Uncle Jiang looked sideways at Yi Qingluan with inquiry in his eyes. Kill. Yi Qingluan wrote lightly. Her tone was calm, as if she was trying to kill an ant. Uncle Jiang nodded without trace. He stared at Gaiyu in the void as if he was stuck in a quagmire. He stretched out his right hand and shook it slowly. There were ripples in the void. There was a trace of fear on Ji Yuyu's face. He opened his mouth extremely slowly, as if he wanted to ask someone for help. Next moment, his body seemed to be squeezed hard by something, twisting unnaturally, and then with a pop sound, his whole body exploded directly in the void, and his blood slowly flowed down the solidified void. Witnessing this scene, Li Mubai's face twitched fiercely. Although his strength is stronger than Ji Yuyu, he is only a martial venerable after all. If he is targeted by Uncle Jiang's weird space method, he may not be much better than Ji Yuyu. Even if you don't die, you will still be seriously injured and dying. Lei Qianqi clenched his fist subconsciously. Ji Yuyu was his master. Although he had a bad character, watching him die in front of his own eyes still made him feel a little uncomfortable. But, thinking of what he had done, he let out another breath. All I can say is that he deserves it. Next to her, Ji Yulinyan watched helplessly as Ji Yu, who had turned into plasma in the air, fell to the ground. She was so scared that she almost lost her mind. Her uncle is a martial venerable and has no power to fight back. Not to mention her. Suddenly, Ji Yulinyan glanced at Nangong Wan's primordial spirit, as if she thought of something, and shouted loudly, "Grandpa, save me. I have a big secret, which is related to whether I can break through the martial saint, or even the martial emperor." Hear the words. Uncle Zhang's eyes flashed and he looked at Yi Qingluan beside him. "Master," Yi Qingluan spoke softly, "should we capture her first, and then use the soul-searching technique to get her so-called secret?" "No need." Jiang Han shook his head. He didn't even have to think about it. The secret Ji Yulinyan mentioned was definitely the tomb of Lord Tongtian. Only this secret that she and Nangong Wan both knew made her dare to say, "Break through the martial saint, break through the martial emperor." Yi Qingluan nodded and glanced at Uncle Zhang flatly. Next moment, Uncle Zhang stretched out his hand, not even bothering to use space combat skills, and slapped him directly. Boom! The wind roared in the palm, and the oppressive Ji Yulinyan's long hair was messy. Her eyes were full of fear, her face was as pale as paper, and she screamed, "Grandpa, save me." At this moment, in the void, a long and gentle sigh suddenly spread, echoing on the top of the 9th peak. "Fellow Taoist, please forgive me if you have to be merciful. Since you have killed the old man's unworthy son, the fault is his, and the old man does not want to if you worry too much. You don't have to kill them all, right? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."